Welcome back to part 9 of What If Naruto Was Told About the Secret to the Shadow Clone Jutsu. Please remember to like and subscribe as it motivates me to upload more videos in the future, and as always link to fanfiction in the description. Chapter 25, The Start of It All. The two fighters eyed each other as Genma stood between them. Naruto was back in a spare set of clothes that he always kept on hand. A pair of blue pants, blue sleeveless form-fitting shirt with bandages wrapped around his ankles and arms. A bracer on his left arm and his gauntlet on his right, with a set of black gloves covering his hands since his orange ones had met an unfortunate accident. He was not wearing a cloak for this battle, knowing it would most likely be destroyed. "So, should we set any rules for this engagement?" asked Naruto as he rolled his shoulders in an attempt to keep them loose. While he was looking forward to this fight, he was feeling pretty tired and not at all sure how well he would do. Yugito was not only a Jinchuriki who had full control over her Biju, but technically a Jonin-level kunoichi even without its powers. And while Naruto himself was no slouch, he just wasn't at that level quite yet even when he was at his best. Though he had no intention of giving up without a fight. Yugito looked thoughtful for a moment before nodding. "No Jinchuriki powers for this battle. The last thing we need is to utterly destroy the stadium. Today it will all be about skill." Naruto nodded. "Very well." He smiled. "I've actually been hoping we would get to fight." "Oh." Yugito gave him a racy grin. "Looking forward to fighting against someone as beautiful as me." Having talked with Yugito and dealt with her personality enough, he now had an idea on how to respond, and so not missing a beat he said, "Well, I was really just hoping that this spar would give me an excuse to get rid of your clothes." The spiky-haired blonde gave the female Jinchuriki a cheeky grin as she blushed. "Hey, I think I'm getting the hang of this whole flirting scene. With all the jutsu that will be flying around, it would be rather easy to accidentally destroy them." "And you called me a perv," Yugito shot back, giving a smirk after she had gotten her blush under control. "I take it both fighters are ready." Genma mumbled a bit, trying to get the pair back on track. "You know I am." Yugito got into a taijutsu stance. "I've been ready since I got here." Naruto slid into his own stance. "And maybe after this I can finally get some fucking sleep." He looked at Yugito and grinned. "Care to join me when I do?" Yugito smirked. "Maybe if you win." Hajime. Almost as soon as the fight started, Yugito shot towards Naruto, who had thrown several shuriken and began doing a set of hand seals. Shuriken Kage Bushin no Jutsu. The group of 5 shuriken multiplied into 50, however Yugito used her cat-like agility and reflexes to weave between them all without slowing down. When she got within range of Naruto, she lashed out with a claw swipe. Naruto went in to block the attack, however the moment the hit connected, Yugito grabbed his forearm and tossed him over her shoulder. Not one to be outdone so easily, he began doing another set of hand seals as he flipped around. Landing on the ground, he thrust out his hands. Fuden, Kamikaze Seiken. Yugito merely grinned as she did her own hand seals. Kaden, Karyu Enden, Fire Release, Fire Dragon Missile. She took a deep breath before breathing out a stream of fire that overtook his wind jutsu, making the jutsu expand as it came towards Naruto. "Oh fuck me," Naruto cursed as the flames made contact with him, expanding even more as it overtook him. Yugito looked up when the technique ended to see the burnt remains of a log. Knowing he was still around, she went back into a stance and began to search the area wearily. However, there was no sign of the younger blonde, making her frown right before a pair of hands latched onto her leg. Yugito's eyes widened as Naruto shot up from the ground, unable to move because of the clone holding onto her. Yugito got hit. However, the reaction one would expect of a person getting hit did not happen here. Instead, the blonde female exploded in a burst of lightning as soon as Naruto's fist made contact, sending said genin rocketing back. Naruto grunted a bit as he hit the ground, forcing his body to move despite the electric current that was running through his body. Looking up, he was forced to roll out of the way as Yugito came in and smashed into the spot where he had been standing. Naruto pushed himself into a series of flips as he moved away from Yugito. Stopping several feet away, Naruto reached into his left pouch and brought out a scroll, which he unrolled and channeled chakra into. A torrent of water shot out and Naruto began to make several hand seals. Sweeten. Suiryu no Kiba, Water Release, Water Dragon Claw. A decent-sized dragon formed out of the water, roaring ferociously as it threw a clawed hand at Yugito. However, right as it hit, said woman phased out of existence, revealing it to have been nothing more than an after-image. She appeared right next to Naruto, smashing two fists into his ribs. The whiskered blonde grunted as he got the wind knocked out of him, but still managed to block the next attack. The taijutsu battle that ensued afterwards was fast and furious. Yugito used a mixture of striking at weak points, as well as claw swipes and grappling techniques to go with her fluid movement and flexibility. Her strikes were almost too fast for Naruto to keep up with, and more often than not he had ended up getting hit. Naruto backpedaled as Yugito took a swipe at his face, then moved in, hoping to catch an opening as she spun around. It was not to be as Yugito continued her spin and kicked him in the face, sending him stumbling back. The stumble was turned into a back roll as Yugito came at him. Kipping up on his feet, Naruto had his hand in a hand seal and his cheeks bulged. He hit his stomach, Fuden, Renkuden. The ball of compressed air shot at Yugito. However, even though the attack was almost launched at point-blank range, the Kumo Kunoichi managed to bend herself so that the jutsu passed over her. As she got back up, Naruto managed to smash a foot in her chest, but before he could pull it back, Yugito caught a hold of it. Grinning, she spun his foot around, causing Naruto to land on his back, only to disappear in a puff of smoke. Yugito's eyes widened in surprise. Wah! Several Naruto suddenly burst from the ground and attempted to engage her in taijutsu. However, even with their combined teamwork, Yugito was able to move through the attacks fluidly, before lashing out with her own. In less than 5 seconds all the clones were dispelled. However, that was all the time Naruto needed as he appeared right next to her. Fuden, Kamikaze Saiken. He thrust his fist out and this time, he did hit Yugito. The attack smashed into her and sent the young woman flying back, where she crashed into the stadium wall. Yugito pried herself out and shook her head. Looking back up at Naruto, she smirked. You know, you really are pretty strong for someone so young. I don't even think I was that strong at your age. Naruto grinned. Thanks, Yugi-chan. That means a lot hearing you say that. It also means I can stop holding back. The look on her face turned feral. Oh, she was all the time Naruto had to get out before Yugito was on him. He blocked a kick from the left, only for Yugito to push her leg off and use that momentum to smash her other foot into his face. Naruto stumbled back and shook the cobwebs out of his head. He looked up to see Yugito already bearing down on him. He jumped back hoping to gain some distance, but Yugito wasn't giving him any and doggedly came after him. He continued trying to block and dodge her attacks, but they were too fast and too numerous, and more often than not Naruto ended up getting a fist, a foot or some other part of the cat woman's body smashed into him. Yugito made one last claw swipe at him, however this time Naruto exploded, sending the Kumo Kunoichi flying back. She landed on her feet and skid across the ground. Once she stopped, Naruto came up from the ground right under her, and this time when he hit her, Yugito did not explode and was instead launched into the air. Jumping up after her, Naruto appeared above Yugito and came down with an axe kick. The moment he did, the blonde knew something was wrong and only a quick Kariwimi saved him from being fried to a crisp, as Yugito turned out to be another Rai Bunshin, having replaced herself a few seconds after she had been sent flying. Appearing a safe distance away, Naruto looked around for his query. Not finding her, he sent a pulse of chakra throughout the stadium in the hopes of finding Yugito. When there was no trace of her, he frowned. There's no way she's out of the stadium since she would be disqualified. That means, he jumped up at almost the same time that Yugito came up from under him. Naruto was just barely able to avoid the swipe that came his way. He could not, however, dodge the kick that Yugito sent him. Grunting, the blonde shinobi flipped around before he landed on his feet, only to jump away seconds later as Yugito came down and hit the spot he had previously been. Raiden. Giant lightning release, false darkness. Naruto looked up just in time to see a bolt of lightning shoot out of Yugito's mouth. Cursing, he used a Kariwimi to replace himself with a log. However, much to his surprise and shock, the bolt of the lightning veered away from the now destroyed log and began to chase after him. Naruto was forced to duck, dodge and jump around the lightning bolt as it followed him. Man, is this battle getting intense. Katetsu said, watching the fight with a critical eye. So do you think Naruto can win this one? I'm not sure. Izumo shook his head. That Kumo girl is good, too good to be a genin, and we know next to nothing about her abilities. It was unfortunate that Naruto had to face Neji and Lee, those two forced him to reveal a lot of his abilities. They were also stronger than the ninja that Yugito girl faced, and while I'm not certain of it, I'm pretty sure she is stronger than Naruto even at his full strength. If he does win it will be on luck. There's no doubts there, Kotetsu said. That girl is definitely Jonin level. Her speed, taijutsu, strength, ninjutsu, tactics, it's obvious that she's only officially a genin. I guess we'll just have to see if Naruto has any other tricks to pull out of his sleeve, and knowing him he might still have some way to pull off a miracle. Naruto grit his teeth as he dodged the lightning bolt again, however this time it managed to graze his arm, sending a shock through him. Damn it, I need to find some way to get this thing to stop following me. He looked over at Yugito to see her holding a hand sign and realized what was happening, of course. She's controlling the jutsu in with hand seals. I need to do something that makes her drop the jutsu. Naruto began channeling yokai into his mouth, Kitsune Bai. A light blue ball of flame shot out of his mouth, and headed for Yugito, forcing her to cancel her jutsu and jump away as the fox fire hit the ground where she had vacated and created a large explosion. Naruto dodged the Gion one last time before it hit a wall and dissipated in an explosion of electricity. Knowing that taijutsu was out of the question, Naruto created a cage bunshin and both of them began doing hand seals. Futen, Atsugi wind release, severing air pressure. Kaden, Gokyaku no Jutsu. The clone expelled a large fireball from its mouth, while Naruto shot a tornado at the fireball that compressed the fireball before releasing a white-hot torrent of flame. The heat was so intense that Yugito felt her skin being singed as it came towards her. Luckily a quick Kariwimi allowed her to escape as the fire hit the ground with an explosion that rocked the entire stadium. Wow! Ino breathed as the explosion ended. What the hell was that? That was what's known as a collaboration jutsu, Asuma said, not taking his eyes off the fight. It's when two jutsus combine to form a more powerful attack. Naruto used a Futen jutsu to fan the flames of the Kaden jutsu, making the attack power double if not triple. While the others gaped, Sasuke looked at the blonde in jealousy. Naruto began panting heavily as the attack ended. He looked around before seeing Yugito standing a little ways away, a slight singe on her clothes the only indication she had not gotten off from that attack quite scot-free. He looked himself over and sighed. His other two battles combined with this one had left him spent. While he had near cage level reserves, and had the much more potent Yuki, launching out all of those jutsu and battling such talented opponents had left him drained. Yugi-chan, I think we both know there is no way I can continue this battle. I forfeit, Naruto said, shocking many of the people in the crowd. Yugito grinned, that's a wise choice. Still, considering how much you've already fought, you battled extremely well. Naruto returned her grin with his own fox-like one. I know, that's what happens when you're as awesome as me. Yugito just shook her head and chuckled. Shusa, ni Yugito, Genma said. For a few moments the crowd was silent as they digested what had happened. After that a few people began to cheer while others, the ones who had lost money on bets, booed. Oh man, I can't believe he lost. Kiba said. He was on fire. Hinata shook her head. It's obvious he was exhausted from his previous battles. That Kei Kunoichi didn't have to fight his tough opponents. I guess that's true, Kiba sighed. Do you think he would have won if he was at full strength? I don't know. That was definitely an interesting battle, Izumo said as he clapped. There were some really good fighters this year. Yeah, Kotetsu agreed. That Lee kid, Temari was decent, Yugito, Neji and Naruto. Who would have ever thought he would have been as good as he is now? Definitely not me, Izumo shook his head. Though out of the five of them I think only Yugito, Temari and Naruto should be given the position of Chunin. Agreed, the others showed Chunin and even Jonin level skills, but they simply didn't show the ability to properly use them. Naruto lost. Ino whined. After his other two fights I was so sure he would win. Kurenai shook her head. While he has obviously gotten stronger, he was completely exhausted by his previous battles. Do you think he would have won if he wasn't so tired? Asked Tenten, who had recovered from her battle with Temari. I don't think so, Kakashi said, causing the others to look at him. That girl is obviously far above Genin level, and while the same could be said for Naruto, I'm almost positive that girl is at least around the same strength as me. The other Jonin nodded their heads, knowing it was true, as well as knowing that she was a Jinchuriki like Naruto himself. Still Munch, it was a really good battle Munch, Choji spoke around a mouthful of chips. I have to agree, Asuma said, taking a drag of his cigarette. He's come a long way since the academy. The two fighters met in the center of the arena. Grinning, Naruto held out a hand. I've got to hand it to you, you really kicked my ass. Yugito snickered as she took his hand. I did, didn't I? Don't think it will be so easy the next time we spar, Naruto said. When I see you again, we'll see who's stronger. You'll never be able to catch up to me, Yugito said jokingly. Naruto smirked. Well, if I can't, at least my ass will be getting kicked by a hot woman like you. Yugito blushed but was determined not to let her fellow blonde win in a battle she had started. Well, I'm glad to know what gets you off. Ouch, Naruto winced but his grin held. Just for that, the next time we meet I'm gonna show you what I would like to do to your ass instead of kicking it. This time Yugito did blush, and Naruto could finally say he had chalked up at least one definite victory for himself. I guess that pervert Jiraiya really was good for something other than his books and kicking my ass during our spars. Are you two with your verbal sparring? Asked Genma. The two turned to look at the proctor as if just now realizing he was there. They looked back at each other then and turned to him again. Sorry, they said in an eerie synchronized fashion. Genma sighed before speaking up, and now for the special treat battle. Uchiha Sasuke will get to face Yugito. As soon as the announcement was made, said Uchiha appeared in the arena, an arrogant smirk on his face. Despite having seen Naruto's battle, he was looking forward to this fight, especially after having seen how powerful this blonde woman was. She'll be perfect to test my strength against. He looked at the woman who would be his next stepping stone on his path to killing his brother. Naruto placed a hand on Yugito's shoulder. I'm not going to wish you luck, since you won't need it for him. But I would like to ask that you open a huge can of whoop ass on the arrogant Tem. I thought he was your teammate Naruto-kun. Yugito said with a raised eyebrow. Oh, he is, but the Tem can get pretty full of himself sometimes. Actually, he's almost always arrogant, Naruto shrugged. I find that nothing will bring the Tem back down to earth like a good old-fashioned ass kicking. Yugito grinned. Well, in that case. Naruto grinned before he used a Sunshin and appeared next to his sensei. Yo, Kaka-sensei. Kakashi blinked at his blonde student. Yo, Naruto, nice job on your battles. You've really come pretty far. And I also see you were able to learn quite a few of those jutsu I gave you. Yeah, I learned 4 of them, Naruto hummed for a moment. I was hoping to get a few more than that, but 4's pretty good considering I only had a month to train and Ero Sennin was a slave driver with my taijutsu. Ero Sennin. Kakashi blinked, wondering who that was. Naruto. Naruto turned around and saw Tenten standing next to him. He gave her a smile. Hey Ten-chan. I'm glad to see you up and about. How are you feeling? Tenten blushed a bit but smiled at the concern she heard in his voice. I'm doing good, thanks to you. I saw your battle with Yugito-san, you did really well. You think so? Naruto rubbed the back of his head, grinning a bit despite the hesitance he heard when Tenten called Yugito by her name. Thanks, she was a tough opponent. Honestly, I think she's probably the strongest person in this exam. From what I can tell, you're right, Kakashi said. In fact, I would have to say she is around my level if not stronger than me, so for you to battle her as long as you did was quite impressive. Naruto blushed a bit at the praise, as well as some of the gawking stares other people in the stands were giving him. Thanks, Kaka-sensei. Kakashi looked at him for a second as he heard the new apparent nickname. Ah, great, now he's giving me nicknames like Kushina-san did. At least it sounds a tad better than Kashi-kun. You're welcome, Naruto. Hey you two, looks like the battle is about to start, Asuma said. Naruto turned back towards the arena with a grin on his face. Oh, I can't wait to see the Tem get his ass beat. Duck Butt is in for a rude awakening. While Naruto considered Sasuke to be something of a friend, the raven-haired genin always remained aloof and arrogant. The only exception was during the second exam, but almost as soon as it had ended the boy went back to being a prick. Inside his mind Kyuubi snickered. It will be nice to see such an arrogant prick humbled. That boy has been starting to remind me of him, far too much. He would easily betray others if it meant getting power. You said it, Q-chan. Genma looked between the two opponents and held up his hand. Hajime. He brought it down before sunshining away. Sasuke smirked as he activated his Sharingan, showing that he now had 3 tomo in each eye. With it he was easily able to track Yugito's speed as she flew towards him. When Yugito got in range and lashed out with a kick, Sasuke blocked it with his hand. However, Yugito pushed off his hand, and launched herself into the air, attacking with a heel kick that Sasuke managed to duck. He launched a fist that caught Yugito's left shoulder, sending her spinning. The blonde kunoichi went with the blow and used it to enhance her axe kick that she sent at Sasuke's head. Said Uchiha managed to jump away at the last second. Yugito threw several shuriken at him, going through a few hand seals, Raiden, Kaminari shuriken. Lightning burst from the shuriken and struck the ground near Sasuke, who was forced to dodge the attacks. He was able to, thanks to having seen the jutsu once already in Yugito's battle against Temari. However, he had ended up focusing so much attention on the shuriken and lightning, that he missed Yugito. Said blonde managed to swipe at his face, leaving a decent-sized and bloody scratch and getting Sasuke to cry out in pain and anger. He jumped back and glared at Yugito, who merely gave him a smirk. Growling in anger, Sasuke went through several hand seals before taking a deep breath. Kaden, Gokyaku no Jutsu. A large fireball billowed out of Sasuke's mouth and headed for Yugito. Yugito jumped into the air, dodging the fireball by a good margin before she sent several kunai towards Sasuke. Said Uchiha got out his own kunai and used his Sharingan to deflect the projectiles. When he had finished, he saw Yugito closing in on him, lashing out with a kick. Sasuke dodged the attack before trying to punch Yugito, however the girl used the agility given to her by her Biju to dodge the attack. She got into Sasuke's face and before he could react, punched him in the stomach, hard. Sasuke folded up like a cheap lawn chair, only to be thrown back when Yugito kneed him in the face. There was a loud crunch of breaking cartilage and a lot of people who had placed bets on the Uchiha to win gasped in shock at seeing his bloodied and broken nose. Yugito chuckled a bit at seeing the Uchiha's glare. Hoping to egg him on, she made a come gesture. It seemed to work as Sasuke charged forward, intent on beating her. However, as the battle began to come up again, it was clear that Yugito was superior in nearly every way. Sasuke was about as fast as Lee with his weights on. Yugito was just a little slower than Lee was when he had opened the Hachiman gates. And Sasuke was unable to utilize his speed to his full potential due to having only copied it, rather than mastered fighting with his newfound speed. Even if his eyes negated any tunnel vision he might have received, his body and mind were still trying to work together with his newfound speed. Yugito had more experience, not just from the harsh training she had gone through as soon as she could form a sentence, but also from the many missions she had done. Sasuke's only experience was his fight against the Kiri Chunin during his first C rank and his sparring with Kakashi. In the end there was no contest. Sasuke continued to be pushed back as Yugito began to increase her speed. Sasuke's Sharingan was able to follow her movement, however, like when he had trained with Kakashi, he was unable to react in time. He received a kick to the face. Stumbling back, he tried to block a claw swipe, only to find it was a feint and received a foot in the torso. He jumped back hoping to gain some distance, however Yugito merely followed him. Getting thoroughly frustrated, Sasuke used a Sunshin to get away, reappearing on the wall on the opposite side of Yugito. It would not give him much time, but it should be more than enough for what he wanted to do. He went through 3 hand seals and placed on hand pointed down, while the other held onto his arm to stabilize it. Chidori, 1000 birds. Lightning sparked from his hand and soon, the sounds of birds chirping filled the air. Kakashi, you didn't teach him that, did you? Guy asked in a serious voice. I thought you would have known better than to teach that to a genin. So says the man who taught his genin how to open 5 of the Hachiman, Kakashi retorted. I had promised him if he surpassed my expectations I would teach him a powerful jutsu. Sensei, isn't that the jutsu used in Naruto? Trailed off as he looked away, remembering seeing his sensei's hand sticking through Haku's chest. Kakashi held in a wince. Yes, it is. That is Kakashi's only original technique, Guy said, not seeming to notice the tension between the two. Because of its sound, like that of 1000 birds chirping, it's called Chidori. Chidori, Naruto muttered as he looked at the jutsu with narrowed eyes. Guy nodded. It's an A-ranked assassination jutsu. Kakashi had created it during the war and he was said to have been able to cut a lightning bolt in half with it. Sakura looked at her sensei and Guy with a sweat drop. Great, old men telling wives' tales. Sasuke ran down the wall, the lightning in his hand ripping through the concrete like paper. He jumped onto the ground and began to speed towards Yugito, who was standing completely still. Is this kid serious? Using an assassination jutsu like that despite the fact that I'm faster than he is? Yugito shook her head. That jutsu relied on being faster than your opponent, something that this kid certainly wasn't. She would just have to teach him what it meant to fight someone better and faster than he was. Yugito waited for Sasuke to come in range. When he did, the Uchiha thrust his fist out, hoping to impale the blonde through the chest. It wasn't to be, as Yugito Kawiramied with a Rai Bunshin. The clone exploded in a shower of sparks and electricity, shocking Sasuke and sending him sailing. The Uchiha Genin hit the floor hard, rolling around on the ground before coming to a stop, completely unconscious. Shusa. Ni Yugito. Genma announced. Well, that was a totally obvious outcome. Naruto said, cracking his neck. Dear Kami, I'm so tired. Hopefully now I can get some sleep. Before anyone else could say something, feathers began falling from the sky. In the same time a large explosion went up in the Hokage booth, and two figures shot out. What the people in the stadium began to fall asleep, dropping from their chairs one by one. All except the disguised Oto and Suna ninja, who were now getting up from their seats to attack the Konoha ninja. Kakashi, Guy, Asuma, Kurenai and several other ninja who were in the stadium began to battle it out with the Oto ninja. Kakashi had his Sharingan out and was using it to great effect, allowing its predicting abilities to defeat the ninja that came his way. Asuma's trench knives were blazing with green wind chakra as he cut down any opponent that stood before him. Guy became a literal hurricane as he launched devastating kicks and punches at his enemies, each attack shattering bones. Kurenai used her talent with genjutsu to confuse and sneak up on opponents, slitting their throats before they knew what was happening. Naruto and a few of the other genin realized it was a genjutsu, and quickly moved to dispel it. Kai. The feathers around them blew away, and the blonde took the opportunity to look around. Ino, Choji and Kiba were all asleep from the genjutsu's effects. Meaning he and the others would have to protect them. He noticed one of the Oto ninja that were not engaging Kakashi and the other Jonin, coming for him and the other genin. Without thinking, Naruto used his gauntlet and launched a kunai into the man's throat. Said man clutched at it as he gurgled and fell to the floor, dead. What the hell? Why are we under attack? Naruto yelled. He did not get an answer, but he knew better than to actually expect one. Naruto grit his teeth as he summoned his bow staff and began to fight several of the Oto ninja who had appeared. Using a dazzling spinning combination to block several attacks that had been sent his way, spinning on his heels, the blonde Konoha shinobi twirled the staff around himself as he began smacking the Oto ninja away from his unconscious comrades. Sakura. Hinata. Naruto shouted, getting the two frightened girls' attention. I need you to inject the genin who are still out of it with your chakra. We can't afford to have them asleep for this. Tenten, I need you to help me protect them. Despite being scared out of their mind, the two rookie kunoichi did as told. As the two kunoichi began waking the other genin, Naruto continued defending them with Tenten joining in the fray. He landed a powerful blow on the head of one of the Oto ninja who had gotten too close to Sakura. Naruto heard the sickening crunch of the man's neck snapping. Since his battle in Nami he had refrained from killing, but with this battle he had now killed at least two enemy ninja. However, he had spoken with Anko, Sarutobi, Kakashi, Jiraiya and Yugito a lot about killing, and had steeled his mind, knowing he would have to kill again. It still sickened him, but he did not slow down. Beside him Tenten was launching kunai after kunai at the ninja who were too far away for Naruto to strike. Each one she threw was a headshot, showing just how accurate she was with her weapons. As Naruto continued his assault, the genin were woken up one by one. When they did, the blonde turned to them, hook up with your Jonin sensei and get your orders from them. Many of the other genin were shocked by Naruto's calm and commanding presence. However, due to his previous battles they did not question him, each nodding before taking off. The blonde jabbed his staff into another ninja's face, not bothering to listen to it break with a sickening crunch as he turned to Sakura, follow me. We're going to Kakashi sensei to get our orders. But what about Sasuke-kun? asked Sakura. Sasuke was down in the arena and probably still unconscious, he needed their help. Sasuke is with Yugito. Naruto resealed his staff and launched a wind blade at Asuna Kunoichi, nearly splitting the woman in half with the attack. She'll protect him right now, we need to get to Kakashi however. Naruto moved away, forcing Sakura to follow him for protection. Oh great, Yugito said in an annoyed voice as she found herself surrounded by several Suna and Oto ninja. I so don't need this. She looked down at the still form of Sasuke and rolled her eyes, and now I've got to babysit too. Just hand over the Uchiha and we may let you walk out of here, one of the Oto shinobi ordered. Orochimaru had said he wanted them to capture Sasuke sometime during the exams if possible, and right now seemed like the best time to get him. Unfortunately they were facing off against Yugito, who not only had no intention of giving the raven-haired genin to them, but was also skilled enough to pull such a thing off. Well, while I would personally love to give the arrogant brat to you, he's kind of a teammate and friend to this guy that I've taken a liking to. So, I'm gonna have to decline your offer. She smirked as the ninja charged her. Sliding into her stance she began to weave through the attacks her enemies sent. Dodging a kick to her side, she latched onto the leg and swung the Oto shinobi into a kunoichi from Suna. Bending herself backwards, she avoided a punch from a Suna shinobi, right before she came back up and with a kunai in hand and shoved it in his throat. Yugito kicked the dying ninja away and into another one that had tried to rush her. Spinning on the balls of her feet, she lashed out with a kick that connected to the throat of the Oto shinobi she had thrown earlier, crushing his windpipe. As the Oto ninja fell to the ground, clutching at his throat, Yugito ducked under a kunai swipe by Asuna kunoichi, before coming into said kunoichi's guard and stabbing her in the ribs with her own kunai, piercing the woman's heart. She grabbed the now dead Suna kunoichi by the arms and used her as a bat to smack another ninja away. Getting back into a stance she looked at the ninja who were now eyeing her wearily and grinned, you know, compared to my battle with Naruto-kun, you guys are boring. The ninja looked at each other before charging back in. Several miles outside of Konoha several dozen Oto and Suna ninjas sat around 3 summoning seal arrays. Always having been a meticulous planner, Orochimaru had made sure to set several decoy summoning arrays, so that, in case the invasion was found out and the Konoha ninja somehow managed to find his summoning arrays, he would still have several left in the wing. The 12 ninja began going through a set of hand signs before slamming them into the array, Kuchio's number jutsu. 3 large puffs of smoke surrounded the area and when it cleared there were 3 large snakes. The 2 on the left were fairly average looking, albeit nearly the size of the Hokage tower. One had green scales, while the others was black. However, it was the one in the middle that looked caught everyone's attention, of course seeing how it had 3 heads that was understandable. The snakes surged forward, the one in the middle in the lead. They crashed through one of the towering walls around Konoha and began to wreak havoc on the village. Jiraiya and the Anbu looked up when they saw the giant snakes smashing into Konoha on the opposite side of where they were located. Damn it. It seems that damn hubby set us up with decoys, Jiraiya muttered. He looked over at the Anbu. I want you all to start with the operation. I'll take care of the summons. Hi Jiraiya-sama. The Anbu saluted and took off. Jiraiya looked over at the stadium where Sarutobi and Naruto were probably fighting right now. I hope those 2 are safe. He turned his attention back to the snakes and took off. Kakashi-sensei. Naruto shouted as he redirected a punch sent his way, and then lashed out with his own. Sending an Oto ninja stumbling back before he snap-kicked the shinobi in the head in such a way that it broke the man's neck. What are our orders? Kakashi looked over at his 2 genin as he finished snapping Asuna kunoichi's neck. I want you 2 to hook up with the other genin. Group together and start defending the village while we fight here. But sensei, what about Sasuke-kun? Asked Sakura as she hid behind Naruto. Don't worry about him, a new voice spoke up. The trio turned to find Yugito standing there with a still unconscious Sasuke over her shoulder. She gave them a small smirk. He'll be fine in a couple of hours, unfortunately he won't be able to move for a while, even after he regains consciousness. Kakashi nodded as he threw a kunai into a nearby Suna shinobi's neck. In that case I want him taken to the hospital where Hiyashi is currently guarding the injured. He turned to look at the other Jonin and their genin who were helping them fight. With Asuma, Shikamaru was using his Kage main no jutsu to hold down any ninja that got too close, while Choji smashed them by using his Bunban Baika no Jutsu partial multi-expansion jutsu. Meanwhile, Ino was using her Shintenshin no Jutsu to enter the minds of her enemies and use their bodies to kill her enemies and sow dissension among the ranks. Over a little ways away, Kiba and Akamaru were using the Gatsuga to drill into enemy ninja left and right, their teamwork tearing through enemy ninja like butter. Hinata had her Byakugan blaring and had shown how much she had improved recently as she used the Juken-style taijutsu to attack her enemies. At the same time, Shino was using his bugs to take care of the enemies that were coming towards them before they got too close to his teammates. Tenten, despite being the only ninja in her squad who was there, used all manner of ranged weapons to take out enemy shinobi as she fought alongside her sensei. Launching kunai and shuriken with great precision before most of the enemy ninja could even react. "You guys mind if I borrow our genin?" Kakashi asked as he ducked under a fist. He came back up and flicked a kunai into his hand, right before he impaled the Oto shinobi through the throat. Asuma grunted as he slashed apart another Oto ninja. "Sure. I think we've got things here." The other Jonin voiced their agreements and Kakashi turned back to his team. "Sakura, I want you to take Sasuke and go with Kiba, Shino and Hinata to the hospital, protect the ninja there." Sakura nodded and went over to Kurenai and her squad while Naruto made 2 clones to take Sasuke off of Yugito's hands. "Naruto, I want you to go with Tenten, and Squad 10, help the village evacuate any civilians who have not left for the shelters." "Got it, sensei." Naruto took off towards Team 10. Kakashi looked over at Yugito. "I can't order you to do anything, but if you can help out that would be appreciated." "Don't worry," Yugito said, "since this is Naruto-kun's home and my cage is currently here, I will lend you a hand." Kakashi raised an eyebrow at the blonde's use of an affectionate suffix for his student. He filed it away in the "tease students" section of his mind before nodding and getting back to work. Sarutobi looked around at what was going on impassively. He was currently being held with a kunai to his neck by Orochimaru, who he knew had disguised himself as the cage. There was a large purple barrier surrounding them, preventing anyone from coming in to aid him, as evidenced by the dead Anbu that had run into it and been fried to a crisp. Not that he wanted or needed help at the moment. "I see you went through quite the bit of careful planning too." "Get me alone, Orochimaru." Sarutobi pushed the kunai away and spun around with a kick. Orochimaru jumped back and chortled a bit. "Kukuku, very good Sarutobi-sensei. I wonder, how did you know it was me?" A hand came up and pulled off the man's mask and face to reveal the pale skin and yellow eyes of Orochimaru, the hubby Sanin. "I have known about your plan for some time now, my foolish former student." Sarutobi narrowed his eyes. "I am curious, however, you have never been the type to simply attack for just vengeance. So why try to destroy Konoha now? What do you hope to accomplish with this?" "Kukuku, well, I don't know if I have any grand goal that I wish to accomplish." Orochimaru smirked. "I suppose you could say I enjoy watching things in motion. Life gets dull when things are standing still, don't you agree?" The pale man removed the cage hat and robes to reveal an off-white kimono with a purple bow. "A stopped windmill is so boring to watch, though sometimes it heightens the anticipation. Right now I just want to make that windmill spin again, and the crumbling of the Leaf Village will provide the wind." Orochimaru took a few steps towards his old sensei. His eyes were alit with excitement. Sarutobi only smirked at his student as he removed his robes and hat to reveal his battle attire. Near samurai-style armor and helmet similar to the kind the Ni and Shodaime Hokages wore. "It seems you never change, do you, Orochimaru? So how are we going to do this?" asked Shikamaru as Choji, Ino, Tenten and Naruto jumped through Konoha. They had been given the job of helping locate and safely escort any civilians who had not yet evacuated to the Hokage monument. Naruto looked at him and noticed the others were also staring at him expectantly. He realized they were waiting for orders. This was not something he had expected. He shook his head. Right now these 4 were expecting him to tell them what to do, and even though he did not want to be the leader right now, he had to think of something. Several dozen plans went through his mind before he selected the one with the best chance at succeeding. He put his hand in the ram seal and called out his most used jutsu, Taju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. There was a puff of smoke and 200 clones suddenly appeared around them. "Shikamaru and Ino, I want you two to take 100 clones and head off the 2 west. These clones will provide distractions and support for you. Tenten and Choji, same thing except go to the eastern sections. What about you, Naruto-kun? Asked Tenten with some worry. He was giving them all the clones, and that had to have been taxing on him. Don't worry about me, Naruto gave her a reassuring smile. He did not have as much chakra as he would have liked, but this many clones wouldn't drain his reserves too much. I still have a lot more chakra left. Now go. The others looked at him for only a moment before shooting off with 100 clones following them. Naruto's eyes hardened again as he took off towards the ninja academy, his instincts were screaming at him to head there. After all, the best way to ensure your enemy cannot fight back in later years to come, is to get rid of the future ninja the opposing village has. Iruka along with several dozen other Chunin had barricaded the academy entrances in an effort to protect the students there. The evacuation order had come to them too late. Orochimaru had already foreseen that the academy may be evacuated before the invasion took place. And so he had given the order to destroy the academy the minute they tried to leave. The moment Iruka and the others had attempted to evacuate, they had been ambushed by several squads of Oto ninja. Many of the Chunin had already died. In an attempt to protect the students as they made their way back into the academy, and many more students had died because there were simply not enough Chunin to protect them all. Turning around, the scarred Chunin looked towards one of his comrades. How are things looking? The Chunin slowly shook his head. Not too good. We've only got about a dozen of us, and 6 are too injured to fight. We lost nearly 50 students in that surprise attack, nearly 100 are injured and there is no way for us to get to the shelters. Damn, Iruka muttered, things were not looking good. Those Oto ninja had expected the evacuation. Almost as soon as it began they managed to storm us. Things are starting to look hopeless, the other agreed. A little ways away, Konohamaru and his 2 friends heard what they had said and were looking both worried and afraid. Looking around, the young Sarutobi saw that many of the other students were also afraid, even more so than he was. Standing up, Konohamaru peeked out of the window he had been hiding near. When he did, he saw something that began to bring hope back to him. It's the boss, he shouted, causing everyone else to look over at him. Naruto needs come to rescue us. The other students and even the teachers looked out of the second-story window and saw the shocking sight of nearly 100 copies of a spiky blonde-haired ninja plowing through the enemy shinobi that had decided to remain behind. Naruto was crouched on a roof as he looked over at the academy, using his talent for remaining hidden to avoid enemy detection. He moved the binoculars as he did a thorough sweep of the academy grounds. There are a lot of dead instructors and many more students, along with nearly 40 shinobi who were surrounding the grounds. Seeing all the dead students made his blood boil. Konoha had allowed these people to come in here and participate in the exams, and this what they do. He shook the thought off for the moment. Getting angry would not help him here. As he looked at the 40 enemy ninja, he wondered why they had not attempted to attack the academy yet. Were they expecting some kind of trap if they entered? Or did they just feel that there was no need to rush things? Whatever, I need to find a way to get rid of them, Naruto said to himself. Damn it, I wish I had not told Shikamaru and the others to go off, Naruto mumbled under his breath. In hindsight, it might not have been the best idea. However, there was simply too much ground to cover in Konoha, and his clones would dispel with on good hit, so they could not protect the population as well as Shikamaru and the others could. Well, I guess there's no helping it then. Not wasting a second, Naruto came up with the best plan to defeat them. Taju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. 100 more Naruto clones puffed into existence, 50 of them jumped off and charged into the enemy ninja. They began to fight using fist, feet, knees, elbows, headbutts and kunai as they tore into the surprised Oto ranks. It took a while, but soon the Oto ninja began fighting back, dispelling the clones faster than Naruto would have liked. However, their job was not just to fight against the enemy ninja, but to herd the enemies into a single spot so that they would be trapped for Naruto's planned jutsu. So in the end, it did not matter how many of them dispelled so long as there was enough clones to execute his plan. The other 50 Naruto clones used as much stealth as they could to make it to the academy walls. A few were dispelled, but most managed to make it in front of the door, which by now was littered with dead Oto ninja. The clones took up a defensive perimeter around the academy's main entrance. Meanwhile, Naruto had jumped in the air, using his wind chakra. to boost his height so that he was above the Oto ninja and his currently fighting clones. He made another clone in midair and both began doing hand seals. Fuden, Atsugai, Kaiten, Gokyako no Jutsu. The clone expelled a large fireball from its mouth, while Naruto shot a tornado at the fireball that compressed the fireball before releasing a white-hot torrent of flame. The flames shot right into the midst of the enemy shinobi, incinerating them in seconds. An explosion soon lit up the area as Naruto landed on the ground. The blonde dropped to a knee while panting a bit. Grimacing, he reached into one of his kunai pouches and pulled out a chakra pill. Normally he would never eat one. In fact, Naruto had never had to eat any kind of supplemental pill in his life, since he had such large reserves and Kyuubi healed everything before it became a serious problem. However, he had been fighting in a tournament since this morning, and had now made 300 clones and had pumped in more Yuki into those Tojutsu on top of the amount he had already used during the exams. So he did not have much of a choice right now. He popped the pill in his mouth and chewed. After swallowing the bitter-tasting pill, he sighed in relief as he felt it do its job and help Kyuubi restore his Yuki. He was nowhere near full, but it should be enough for this. Turning around, he made his way towards the academy entrance. Naruto. Naruto neat boss. The door opened to reveal Iruka, Konohamaru, Moegi and Udon had come near the door with the many academy students and Chunin instructors behind them. "I'm glad to see you guys are all right," Naruto said, smiling in relief. "Did Hokage-sama send you?" asked Iruka. Naruto shook his head. "Kakashi-sensei ordered me and a few other genin to help assist in the evacuation. I decided to come here just in case, and it looks like my instincts paid off." He looked at Iruka with a rare serious expression on his face. "Are there any injured?" Iruka looked somewhat taken back by the serious expression on Naruto's face, but gave a nod. "Half of our Chunin instructors are in about 100 students." Naruto grimaced. "Can they walk or do they need assistance?" "Most of them can walk, however several will need help," Iruka answered. Nodding, Naruto came up with a decision on what to do. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Around 50 clones popped into existence. Naruto winced as he felt half of his reserves leave him, but knew it was necessary. "These 25 will help carry any of the injured, while the other 25 will protect you as you make your way to the shelters in the Hokage monument." "What about you?" asked Iruka with a frown. "There's an enemy that has been dispelling quite a few of my clones for a while now. None of them have been able to touch this one. I have to deal with him personally." Iruka gave his former student a concerned look. "Are you sure that's wise?" Naruto shrugged. "Maybe not, but if I don't deal with him he'll attack and kill more villagers and I can't let that happen." Knowing better than to try and change Naruto's decision, Iruka nodded. "Well, good luck then." "Thanks." Naruto ran off, jumping over the fence and leaving the academy students and instructors staring after him. Shikamaru caught another shinobi in his shadow, allowing one of the Naruto clones to kill him by slicing his neck open with a kunai. They had been fighting for quite a while. Shikamaru would use his shadows to possess them and a Naruto clone would kill them. Ino was hidden along the walls, using her mind-possessing ability to cause chaos amongst the enemy's ranks while several clones hid themselves around her for protection. "Man, this is so troublesome," Shikamaru muttered, catching another 3 ninja. In his shadow, 3 Naruto clones converged on the enemies, slitting their throats before disappearing. "We're lucky a lot of these ninja appear to only be genin," Shikamaru thought to himself as he watched a Naruto clone kill another enemy ninja. "Their elite forces must all be at the arena." "Shushoryu!" Tenten shouted as hundreds of weapons left the scrolls she was weaving through the air. Each and every weapon managed to hit one of the Oto or Suna ninja below, making the groups that had been storming Konoha scream out in pain as they were impaled or bludgeoned. After exhausting her weapons, Tenten landed on the roof some distance away and used chakra strings to lift the weapons back up and send them to attack more ninja who had just gotten there. In another street just a little ways away, Choji was rolling over every enemy ninja he came across, smashing them like pancakes, while the Naruto clones were either fighting their own battles, rescuing the civilians that were in the area, or herding the enemy shinobi towards Choji. Within a sector of Konoha that looked near abandoned, a cage opened and Gaara stepped out. The left side of his face was covered in sand that held the form of a tanuki. His teeth on that side was likewise fanged, while the other side held normal teeth. Drool was seeping down his mouth and his left eye no longer held the same green as his right, instead it was yellow in color with a star-like pupil in the center. The sand seemed to stop at his torso, covering his arm as well and allowing it to take the form of a giant claw with 3 fingers. His head swished around as if looking for prey, the drool flying everywhere as he glared at not seeing anything here. With nothing here to kill he bounded off. Uswamki. Where are you, Uzumaki? Come and let me prove my existance. The battle between Orochimaru and Sarutobi had become more and more intense as the two launched jutsu after jutsu, as sword clashed against staff and the two battled all across the enclosed space. The Sandaime, despite being old, seemed able to keep up with Orochimaru for the most part. Everything changed however when Orochimaru used a jutsu that the Nadim had created, and brought 2 of Konoha's most powerful shinobi back to life. The aging Hokage had never imagined that his former student would stoop so low as to use this jutsu, a jutsu that he had tried to hide from everyone after he had become Hokage due to how truly despicable it was. Sarutobi was only glad he had been able to stop the Yondaime from surfacing, or this battle would have been so far out of his favor it would have been considered ridiculous. "Little Sarutobi, is that you?" asked the man on the right. He had long black hair and was wearing red battle armor. "You've gotten old. It must have been a long time since we have been dead, old monkey," asked the one on the left. A man with white hair and blue battle armor. "I would have never thought we would meet again like this, Shodaime-sama, Nadaime-sama." Sarutobi spoke with a slight choke, both happy to see his old friends again, and appalled at the way he had to see them. "I suggest you prepare yourselves." Outside of the barrier several of the Anbu gasped, all of them staring at the 2 armor-clad ninja in surprise, shock, awe and no small amount of fear. Before, Sarutobi had stood a chance of winning. Even though he was old, the man wise and was crafty in the ways of war, and despite his age was still very strong and had taken down opponents far worse than Orochimaru. Now however, he was being forced to face 2 of the strongest shinobi that Konoha had ever produced, 2 of the village's founders. The Anbu were no longer sure if their leader could win, not against a Sannin and 2 former Hokages. The Nadim glanced over his shoulder to see Orochimaru closing in with a set of specially designed kunai. He was easily able to realize what was going on. "I see, so this is the one who was able to perform Edo Tensei, resurrection of the impure world. That's pretty impressive." The Shodaime looked over at the Sandaime Hokage. "If this is true, then I would assume we are here to battle you, little Saru." "I am correct." "Yes it is. Now if you 3 old fools are done reminiscing, let's get started," Orochimaru stated as he put the 2 specially tagged kuna into the backs of the Nadaimes and Shodaime's heads. "I want to watch the leaf burn." The Shodaime sighed. "It seems no matter how much the times change, there will always be battle." "Yes, but you like the idea, don't you?" Orochimaru chuckled. "Using the dead as tools, Orochimaru, you have lowered yourself even more than I thought possible." Sarutobi clenched his fists. Orochimaru smirked. "Say what you want, but the times have changed and I've waited too long to watch this village burn to the ground. But don't worry sensei, I'll give you the privilege to watch your beloved village get razed before I end your life." However, much to Orochimaru's surprise, Sarutobi merely smirked. "That will not be happening today, my foolish student. Since you plan on using 2 cages to fight 1, I believe it's time I even up the odds." Pulling out 2 scrolls from his pouch, Sarutobi threw them into the air before going through a set of hand signs. The 2 scrolls fell back down, but Sarutobi caught them, and set them on the ground where he unrolled them. It was then that Orochimaru saw just what was on the 2 scrolls and felt his eyes widen. Kuchio's number jutsu. There were 2 puffs of smoke, and when it cleared, Orochimaru could not hold in the curse, as the tides once again turned, and possibly not in his favor this time. "Orochimaru, I don't believe you were properly introduced before. I would like you to meet the Raikage of Kumogakure and his brother, Kurabi." Yo, I float like a butterfly and sting like a bee, that because I'm the 8 tails Jinchuriki." Sarutobi, the Anbu, Orochimaru and even the puppet cages all sweat dropped at the man's rapping. A coughed. "Well, now that B has gotten that out of his system, why don't we start this battle?" "I couldn't agree more," Orochimaru said, deciding to ignore the man's rapping, since even he thought it was weird. It did not matter if Sarutobi had help, he would make the leaf burn. Chapter 26, Cage Level Battles. Orochimaru looked in anger at the two ninja that had appeared from the ceiling scrolls. Truth be told, he had not even expected the pair to help. They were under no obligation to assist Konoha, and Kumo had been with Konoha for a long time. That had been part of the reason he had continued with his plan to attack regardless. Now his two greatest tools would be taken away to battle against the Hokage and his younger brother. A most frustrating turn of events, as it meant the mental warfare he had planned on his sensei was no longer valid and he had lost two powerful shinobi to help him. It still did not mean anything to him, however. His plans remained unchanged and he was sure that this battle would still be his in the end. I did not expect the Yondaime Hokage to actually come to your aid, sensei, Orochimaru said in amusement. Still, this changes nothing. The Leaf Village will burn by the end of this battle. I think you are overestimating your chances, Orochimaru, Sarutobi shot back. The old monkey is right, yo. This battle is no longer in your favor since me and Big Bro have come onto this show. Aside at his brother's rap and resisted the urge to face Palm, thankfully having been dealing with it as long as he had, I was able to ignore it. I believe my brother is right. This battle will no longer be as easy as you think. Kukuku, perhaps, Orochimaru chortled. Though I am curious, you are not allies with Konoha, so why side with them in this fight? You would greatly benefit from its destruction. The Hokage shook his head. That's only a possibility. Their destruction does not guarantee my village more missions. In any case, when I heard I would get rid of a certain snake, one who has caused quite an uproar in my village when he had his right-hand man kidnap several children with Kekkei Genkei from Kumo, I was more than happy to help him in this battle. I see. I suppose you would still be upset by that, Orochimaru hummed, not seeming to be bothered with admitting to the particular atrocity he had committed. Well, it doesn't matter in the end. Hokage-san, I will take on the Shodai, since I get the feeling you wish to battle your old student, the Hokage said. Thank you, Hokage-san, Sarutobi replied. You are correct, I so wish to finish what I started so many years ago. Yo, the Shodai is the man in red, or am I getting mixed up with the two who are dead? Asked Kurabi. No, you are correct. Sarutobi did his best to ignore the man's raps by imagining it was no different from the times when Naruto would say Datbeo. Then I guess that means I get the one in blue. He looks like he would be fun to fight too. Let's just get this battle started, the Hokage commented as he saw the two former Hokages charging in. He and Kurabi immediately leapt in front of the pair and with a twin shout of, Lariat! Kicked two of the strongest ninja ever produced in the village away. As they ran after the pair of reanimated cages, Sarutobi continued glaring at his former student. Sarutobi watched the pair move off to fight his two former senseis. He was now very glad he had decided to tell the Yondaime Hokage about Orochimaru's planned invasion. I had refused to tell him why he had agreed to help Sarutobi in this fight, but hearing about what his former student had done made him realize it was a matter of village security. It disgusted and pleased him at the same time that Orochimaru had managed to get on A's bad side, or he would have been forced to face his former teachers and friends. He knew that his age was catching up with him. The fact that his battle with his former student had lasted as long as it had was proof enough. Had it been even a few years prior, Sarutobi would have been able to kill his former student with only minor troubles. I am curious, Orochimaru. What do you hope to gain in attacking Konoha after all this time? Asked Sarutobi, hoping to get more information out the snake Sannin and stall him. Orochimaru hummed as a smirk adorned his face. I suppose I could tell you. The reason I postponed this village's destruction is really quite simple. I wanted something that would help me accomplish my ambitions of learning every jutsu in the world. What I want are the eyes that can turn even the great Kyuubi no Kitsune into nothing more than an obedient pet. The eyes that will allow me to copy jutsu with a single glance, that can break the will of others with by merely looking at them, that can bring forth black flames that will burn for 7 days without end. So, you want Uchiha Sasuke then? Sarutobi had already suspected this. Naruto had mentioned it during the debriefing and Jiraiya had agreed that it was what the snake would want. Yes, Orochimaru said with a hiss, I want the boy with the Sharingan. He will be a great asset to me as my next host. Sarutobi frowned as a bad feeling came over him. Next host. Kukuku. Orochimaru laughed as he reached a hand to his face in a manner similar to what he had done in the Forest of Death and when he had pulled away his cage disguise. He peeled away the flesh of his skin to reveal what lay underneath, causing Sarutobi to gasp. What is this? Sarutobi shouted in horror and disgust. Who are you? Kukuku. Came the now feminine laugh. The person standing before him no longer looked like his former student. Instead it was a woman, though her skin was as pale as Orochimaru's and she still contained yellow eyes and that unnaturally long tongue. However, everything else about this person was different. The woman gave Sarutobi a sick grin. Why don't you recognize me, sensei? It's me, Orochimaru. You. Sarutobi growled out in anger at seeing how far his student had now stooped to. To have fallen so low, you're a fiend, Orochimaru. Kukuku, do not be so angry, sensei. That look really doesn't suit you. Orochimaru chortled. You are old, sensei, and just by looking at you I can see that age has caught up to you. We both know, had you been younger, you might have been able to defeat me. Age has made you weak. But I have gained the power of immortality. No sacrifice is too small for that power. I will never end up like you. Too weak and fragile to stand up against those I should have beaten. Sarutobi shook in a mixture of rage, regret and sorrow. To see his prized student fall so low, all for the desire of gaining immortality. This man was no longer worthy of being called his student. He was now a monster, someone who held no remorse or regret for the deaths he had needlessly caused in his quest for immortality. What made it worse was that Sarutobi knew he could have ended this man years ago, when he had first found out about his student's experiments on the people of Konoha. However, he had let his love for his student get in the way of the decision he could have made, the one he should have made. There were only a few things he had ever come to truly regret in his life. The first was how he had been unable to give Naruto the life he should have had for bearing the burden of the Kyuubi. The second was not being able to help Minato and Kushina when they had decided to make their son a Jinchuriki, not being able to sacrifice his own life so that they could have raised Naruto as he should have been. And the third was standing right in front of him. However, he would no longer run away from this decision. Today, he would either end his foolish former student, or die in the attempt. Orochimaru. Sarutobi snarled as he bit his thumb, smearing the blood along his other hand and beginning a sequence of hand seals. It was a mistake to let you live all those years ago. However, today, I will rectify that mistake. This is the day I end your ambitions, my foolish former student. Kuchio's no Jutsu. Sarutobi slammed his hand into the ground, an array of seals appearing under it. There was a puff of smoke to signify the Hokage summoning something. When the smoke cleared, it was to reveal a large white ape with ninja attire and a Konoha headband secured around his forehead. The ape observed his new surroundings briefly, before his eyes locked onto the gold-slitted eyes of Orochimaru. So, it has come to this after all, the old ape ground out, turning his attention to Sarutobi. You're a pathetic fool for letting that man live, Saru. Had you just killed him the last time you had met, none of this would have happened. I know I was foolish back then, Enma, however, rest assured that I will not be letting this monster live beyond today. Sarutobi replied, knowing his summon had never been happy with his decision to let the snake Sannin go. This wouldn't have happened had you just finished him the first time you had the chance. Enma, use that so we can rid ourselves of this snake once and for all. Very well, the old ape said before forming a hand seal. Henge, Kongonyoi adamantine staff. A puff of smoke later, a long black staff with golden-ended tips appeared in Enma's place. Sarutobi grasped the staff in his hand, twirling the weapon around expertly despite not having used it in battle for a few years. He settled himself into a stance and glared at his opponent. Smirking at his sensei, Orochimaru opened his mouth and allowed a snake to slither out of it. Said serpent hissed as it opened its jaws to reveal the hilt of a blade. Orochimaru grabbed onto the hilt and pulled it out of the snake, letting it retreat back into its master. The Kusanagi, the Enma transformed staff, spoke. I may be tough, but that will injure me after a while. I will be sure to end it before that happens, Sarutobi replied. Orochimaru grinned as he swung the sword a few times. Well, shall we begin, sensei? Of course, my foolish former student. Sarutobi rushed forward. Let us begin. The Raikage held in a smirk as he looked at the Shodai Hokage. You know, I have always wanted to fight against an opponent of your caliber. His smirk turned into a frown when he did not receive an answer. Though in hindsight it was to be expected, after all, What did he expect a dead man under the control of a madman to say? "Well, I suppose we should just get started," he mumbled. The dark-skinned man took off his robe and hat, throwing them away where they made a loud crashing sound to reveal they were weighted. Having never been patient enough for his opponents to make the first move, charged at the Shodai. He sent a fist at the man, not at all bothered when it was blocked and a fist was sent his way in return. He blocked the fist easily enough and pulled the man into a knee, however the Shodai merely flipped over the man, spinning in mid-air to launch a kick at A. The Raikage managed to duck under the kick, grabbing the Shodai by the foot. The Raikage managed to toss the armored ninja away. The Shodai flipped himself over, landing on his feet and looked up to see A charging towards him. Hashirama placed his hands on the ground, causing several tree branches to sprout out and attempt to grab onto A. The Raikage tried to jump away from the attack, but a vine managed to wrap itself around his ankle. A grunted as he used his strength to rip the vine and continued his charge towards the Shodai. In response, Hashirama went through several hand seals. Afterwards he slammed them into the ground, causing multiple bamboo spikes to shoot out. Despite his size, the Raikage moved between the bamboo shafts with relative ease, and swatted away those few that he could not dodge. Finally closing the distance, A lashed out with a kick. However, Hashirama managed to jump over it, landing on the dark-skinned man's bulky shoulder. He attempted to kick A, but the Raikage threw him off before it could happen. He landed on the ground some distance away, and went through more hand seals. Slamming his hands in the ground caused multiple large wooden pillars to shoot out and smash into A. The Raikage grunted as he crossed his arms in a guard as the pillars slammed into him, using his strength to stay in the same spot. Keeping one hand on the branch he had, A used his other one to smash into the pillar. Said wooden pillar shattered as he hit it. A began doing his own hand seals before opening his mouth. Raiden. Gion. A large bolt of lightning shot out at Hashirama, who began his own hand sealing. A large wooden dome formed around him, protecting the Shodai from A's lightning attack. When the lightning dissipated, the dome came down. Hashirama looked around only to find no one. It was then that he received a powerful blow to the face, sending him flying backwards where he smashed into the ground and skidded across it. Knowing that a cage would never be defeated by only one hit, the Raikage began doing more hand seals. Raiden. Kaminari no Kami Ken. Lightning release. Lightning God Fist. A thrust out his fist, causing a large blast of lightning to shoot out at Hashirama. It soon took the shape of a fist, right before it crashed into the Shodai, causing him in the area he was in to explode in a shower of lightning. The Raikage frowned as he waited to see what had happened, knowing better than to let his guard down. His decision was soon shown to be a prudent choice as several wooden stakes shot out of the dust and debris his jutsu had kicked up. The Raikage charged lightning chakra into his fists, bashing the stakes as they came towards him, destroying them. It was then that the Shodai came out of the dust himself, rushing towards the towering Raikage as he attacked. A blocked the fist that came his way, then lashed out with his own fist. Hashirama dodged the attack, jumping back a little before he came in with a kick. The Raikage managed to grab the kick, keeping Hashirama in place before he lifted the man above his head and slammed him back into the ground. A then jumped up and flipped himself over as he attempted to heel drop the Shodai. However, Hashirama managed to roll away, pushing himself into a flip and landing on his feet a few meters away. The Shodai went through more hand seals before thrusting his fists out, with said fists turning into large blocks of wood that launched themselves at A. The Raikage ran right towards them, using his strength to smash the wooden fists to pieces. He charged in and got close to Hashirama, using a left punch, right punch combination. When his attacks were blocked, a kicked the Shodai's legs out from under him. He would have stepped on the man, but Hashirama managed to twist around and kick the Raikage's foot, knocking him off balance. The Raikage landed on the ground with a heavy thud, the tiles of the roof breaking from his weight. He looked up to see Hashirama bearing down on him and rolled out of the way. Pushing himself up, managed to block the incoming jab sent his way. He swatted the next hand away and moved in, closing the distance to land a powerful blow on the founder of Konoha's stomach, sending the man flying away. The Shodai hit the ground hard, with the force of the impact sending the tiles of the roof flying as the man skidded along the ground. Hashirama continued his skid as he kicked up tiles and even concrete from the power the attack had hit him with. Hashirama stood up from the large trench he had made when he skidded across the ground. He looked up, only to see the Raikage standing right next to him, fist reared back. Raiden, Kaminari no Hinto, lightning release, lightning tip. A shouted as he thrust his fist at Hashirama, with said fist crackling with lightning as it took the shape of a spear point. The fist plunged right into and through Hashirama, sending several thousand volts of electricity through the Shodai's body. Kai. The hole that A had made when he plunged his fist into Hashirama's chest exploded in a shower of electricity. The Shodai was sent flying backwards as the blast destroyed half of his body, though oddly enough no blood came out of it. He landed on the ground with a thud several feet away from the Raikage. A nodded to himself as he saw the damage done to his opponent. He was about to breathe a sigh of relief when he stopped, looked at Hashirama's body again and then gaped. The area that his jutsu had destroyed was slowly reforming as ash began to cover the area, crawling along Hashirama's skin and leaving behind unmarred flesh, as if the wound had never happened. When all of the damage A's jutsu had done was healed, Hashirama stood up as if he had never been injured. Oh what the fuck. A swore, this is great, I'm fighting an undead Kage. I'm beginning to regret offering my aid to the Hokage. A tensed when he saw Hashirama's left leg shift, a sure sign that the man was about to charge. His theory proved to be correct when the Shodai began speeding towards him. The Raikage growled in annoyance as he set himself in a stance, waiting for the Shodai to get near him. When the man was in range, A launched a fist at the man. It was blocked of course, but A had anticipated this and grabbed onto the Shodai's forearm, using it to pull the man into a knee. Though, that too proved unsuccessful when Hashirama managed to block the attack with his own knee. Still it proved useful in getting close and the Raikage was able to launch several successful hits on Hashirama. Using his powerful physical strength, A pummeled the man with his fists with bone-jarring force. If the Shodai was not already dead and incapable of feeling pain, he would have been howling at the amount of abuse his forearms and joints were taking. The amount of power in each of A's strikes were more than enough to break the bones of all but the most powerful of taijutsu users. Having had enough of the man blocking his attacks, A grabbed both of Hashirama's arms in his next combination. The Raikage then proceeded to jump into the air, and launched a devastating double stomp kick on the Shodai's chest. The force of the assault was enough that Hashirama's arms, which were still in the grip of the Raikage, were ripped off at the sockets and the man himself was sent flying back, where he once again crashed into the tiled roof with enough force to send tiles and grout several dozen feet into the air. Through the arms he now held away, and looked towards where Hashirama was. He quickly let out a frustrated snarl as he saw the man once more getting up from his lethal attack, the Shodai's arms having already been regrown. Realized that he was going to have to really go all out on the guy if he wanted to win. Quite possibly, it would take having to destroy Hashirama's body entirely to defeat the man. He watched as Hashirama went through a set of hand seals and then slammed his hands on the ground. A large number of thick trunk-sized vines shot out of the ground, launching themselves towards A, who had already begun his own hand seals. Raiden, Raryuden, lightning release, lightning dragon jutsu. A large dragon made of lightning appeared in front of A, letting loose a fearsome roar before it charged towards Hashirama. The roots and vines that got in its way were utterly destroyed as it made its mad dash towards the Shodai. Before it could hit, a large dome of wood covered Hashirama's form, taking the brunt of the attack. However, unlike the first attack this jutsu blocked, the lightning dragon was too powerful to block entirely, and it ended up drilling straight through the wood dome. The explosion that followed was nothing short of spectacular as lightning arched out in all directions from the point of the jutsu's impact. When it cleared, it revealed the dome had been utterly destroyed, with chunks of wood lying around the area, and a large crater showing on the roof. A was already looking down at the destruction his jutsu had caused. Seeing there was nothing there, no corpse or anything, he was positive he had won. Still, he knew better than to let his guard down until he was sure that victory was his. His actions were shown to be a wise course of action when seconds later several vines shot out of the ground and began to wrap around him. He tried to break free of course, but he was surprised enough that he had let the vines grow in numbers that even his strength could not break out of. Instead they managed to wrap around his boy, until he was entirely covered in them, and then they began to squeeze the life out of him. Only for it to explode in a shower of lightning, destroying most if not all of the vines that had been around the now revealed Raibunchen. A few seconds later Hashirama appeared next to where the clone had exploded, looking for his opponent. Raiden. Raiko Nami no Jutsu, Lightning Release, Lightning Wave Jutsu. A voice called out. Less than a second later a large wave of lightning burst from the left in a decent-sized explosion. Hashirama jumped into the air in order to avoid the attack, but it was then that another attack was called out, this time from above. Raiden. Raikyu. Hashirama only had time to look up as a ball of lightning shot towards him, smashing into his body and sending several thousands volts of electricity through him as he plummeted to the ground. He hit the ground with a loud crash, sending tiling and concrete in all directions as the lightning exploded against him. He landed on the ground when the lightning attack ended and saw, much to his disgruntlement, that there was nothing there except a pile of wood. Moku Bunchen, wood clone. He wondered as he stared at the pile. His mental question remained unanswered as he was forced to jump back when several large wooden stakes shot out of the ground at his former position. Looking up he saw Hashirama staring at him, his hands still on the ground. If he could have cursed, he would have, but as it was he had no time to get enough breath for such a thing, as he was forced to dodge a number of large wooden stakes that continued shooting out of the ground at him. Deciding he had enough. He began channeling lightning chakra through his entire body, letting it pour out of him. Lightning began dancing across his skin, sending jolts that arched away every now and then, a testament to the amount of lightning chakra he had begun channeling. Soon enough he was covered in lightning, making it look like he was covered in a living, light blue armor. Without preamble, he held his ground and when the wooden stakes shot at him again, he merely used his fists to destroy them. None of the stakes stood a chance as he pulverized them, smashing them into oblivion as each time he struck, a large blast of lightning came off him. When the stakes stopped coming, he looked up to see Hashirama charging towards him. That was when he disappeared, leaving nothing more than a streak of light blue to signify where he had been. It was in that same split second of A's disappearance, that the Shodai received a powerful punch in the jaw, enough to shatter it and send him flying back. Before he could hit the ground, he received another blow from behind, launching him into the air. Then he received a blow to his gut, sending him falling back into the ground where he landed with a large crash. Despite the massive pounding he had just received, Hashirama stood up as his wounds healed completely. He looked over to his left to see the Raikage standing there, his armor still around his form and crackling with repressed energy. Raiden No. Yoroi, Lightning Armor, stated the name of the jutsu he was using. He then disappeared again and began pounding away at the Shodai, hoping that if he beat the man down enough he would kill him. I hope you're ready for the battle of the century, because Hachibi-sama's gonna fight with a fury. Killer Bee rapped, frowning when all the Nadaime, Tobirama Senju, did was give him a dead stare. Man, this crowd is tough, so it looks like I'm gonna have to get a little rough. Once again, Tobirama ignored the man's rap as his legs tensed, right before he charged at Kurabi. Said man waited for the Nadaime to come closer, letting the white-haired man lash out with a fist. Kurabi countered by launching his own, hitting the Nadaime's fist and negating the power of the man's punch. In that same second, B struck out with his other fists, hitting Tobirama in the gut and launching him back. Tobirama skidded back several feet, before shaking off the hit like it was nothing and beginning a set of hand seals. Suiden no Jutsu. Water began to coalesce in front of the Nadaime Hokage, and then it began taking the shape of a dragon with glowing yellow eyes. Said dragon let loose a roar as it charged Kurabi's position. Motherfucker, Kurabi cursed as he dodged to the left, only to see Tobirama already in front of him with a kunai in hand. The Nadaime lashed out with his kunai, however, faster than the eye could blink. Kurabi had unsheathed a sword and managed to slash the kunai in half. How do you like that, motherfucker? I got skills like wouldn't believe, so maybe it's time you just up and leave. Hey, that one was pretty good, I better write it down before my rap goes out of town. Tobirama looked at Kurabi, who had just sheathed his sword again and was now crouched on the ground with a pen and paper writing and furiously scribbling his new rhyme, then back down to the hilt of his destroyed kunai. Tossing the kunai away, the Nadaime charged in. He launched a jab at Kurabi's face while the man was still writing, however Kurabi was not as preoccupied as he looked. This was proven as he got up and easily blocked the punch sent to him by Tobirama. Seeing his punch blocked, the Nadaime came in with a kick, However, Kurabi just jumped back, letting the attack miss him entirely. "Well, it looks like you've got some moves, little dude," Kurabi complimented. "But now that I'm in the mood, it's time to beat you down, by showing what I can do." The dark-skinned man paused for a moment. "Hey, that was a wicked rhyme, I better write it down before I lose it this time." Once again Kurabi took out his trusty notepad and pen. Sitting down he began writing his raps. If Tobirama could have sweat dropped he would at seeing someone completely ignore his presence not once but twice in such a high-level battle, as it was the man now had the emotional range of a teaspoon, a dead teaspoon at that. And so his natural reaction was to simply begin hand-sealing for a jutsu. Sweeten. Sushoha water release, water collision destruction. In several seconds, a rather large amount of water had gathered around the white-haired man out of nowhere, and had formed what amounted to a miniature tornado or typhoon that was continuously increasing in size. When the technique was complete, Tobirama made a gesture towards Kurabi and the water rushed over to the still writing man. "What da fuck?" Kurabi shouted as he put his writing utensils and notepad away, and began pumping chakra into his legs. He jumped into the air in order to avoid the large crashing wave. Kurabi landed on top of the water and looked around to find his opponent. He frowned when he could not find the Nadaime, and it was in that moment that a shadow appeared above him. Looking up he saw Tobirama bearing down on his position, with a kunai in hand. Kurabi just smirked as he grabbed onto one of his swords, and when the Nadaime was nearly on top of him he struck. Drawing his sword, Kurabi lashed out with a horizontal slash that took the kunai and the arm holding the kunai off. The kunai's blade along with the arm up to the man's elbow slid off and fell into the water caused by the white-haired man's jutsu. Tobirama did not even have time to contemplate what had happened, not that he could in his deadened emotional state anyways, as he received a powerful kick to the chest and was sent flying. "Now that's what I'm talking about, it's called taking the trash out," Kurabi rapped. However, whatever else he might have said stopped when he saw his opponent getting up. Not only was he getting up, but his arm was starting to reform as what looked like ash swirled around it. "Now that's just not cool, I'm really not liking this fool." He noticed that Tobirama was now fully healed and grunted in annoyance. "It looks like I'm gonna have to get serious, if the dude regenerate like this. B, do you ever stop rapping?" Kurabi blinked at the annoyed voice in his head. "Hachi, when did you wake up? I thought you was catching some Z's. I've been awake for nearly an hour and you fool. I've been watching this battle the whole time." Kurabi could practically feel his biju rolling his eyes. "Well, why didn't you say so? You know it's good to have more than one voice when I'm working my rhymes 8-0. Damn it B. How many times have I told you not to call me that?" "Don't know, I lost count a long time ago." Kurabi did not get the chance to hear his tenant's response as the Nadaime charged him, forcing B to back away. Frowning, the dark-skinned man timed his attacks to that of his opponent's, lashing out and knocking the man's fist away, right before he sent his own into the man. Kurabi's fist hit Tobirama full force in the face, sending the man flying back. "This dude's starting to knock off my rhymes, it's time I showed him what happens to those who waste my time." Kurabi grabbed his swords one by one and tossed them into the air. He took a crane position as he caught all 7 of the swords he had carried on his back. One in each hand, one in between the joints of each of his arms, one he caught and held in the joint of his upright lifted right knee, one held under his left armpit and one in his mouth. As this happened, Tobirama charged at B, hoping to take him out before he could do whatever it was he was going to do. However, it was too late as Kurabi began to bob his head to an unheard beat. When the Nadaime came in close, the dark-skinned man began to spin, looking very much like a pinwheel as he attacked. Seeing this, the Nadaime attempted backpedal, trying his best to dodge the completely random movements that B was making. However, the man had become a literal whirlwind of movement, like a force of nature, and was doggedly following the Nadaime, occasionally letting one of the swords lash out, or throwing one into the air, adding an even more random and deadly variable to the battle. The white-haired man did his best to dodge or block the buzzsaw that was B, using 2 kunai and his natural speed on the water to aid him, and for a time he seemed to be doing well. However, after several minutes of staying on the defensive, the white-haired former Kage's defenses slipped and B capitulated on this. The 7 blades shredded into the Nadaime, cutting him into ribbons that fell on the tiled roof. Kurabi stopped moving after that, throwing his blades into the air before catching them one by one and resheathing them. Take that motherfucker, I'd like to see this man get back, after that subliminal attack. As if karma decided to spite B, ashes began spreading across the diced up man's form. Once again it crawled up his skin, reforming the man's body and leaving it scarless as if the Nadaime had not just been cut up into several pieces by B's blades. Once Tobarama's body was fully healed, the man stood back up and looked at Kurabi with his dead expression. What's this? B shouted in surprise, motherfucker, why won't yo ass stay down, how many times do I have to beat it into the ground? The Nadaime's response was to charge him, closing the distance in less than a second. Kurabi decided to be the one to throw the first punch this time, rather than react to the white-haired man's attacks. However, the man merely leapt over his hand, using it as a springboard as he pushed his body into the air. Then the Nadaime twisted in mid-air, so that his body was running parallel to B's for all of 2 seconds. It was during those 2 seconds that several things of great importance happened. The first was for Tobarama to grab onto 2 of B's swords. The second thing was him pulling Kurabi's swords from their sheath. And last, was him landing on the ground, spinning around and taking a 2-sword stance behind B, who had not moved since the entire thing happened. Oh motherfucker, he did not just grab my swords. Kurabi shouted in his mind. Now in Kumo there were a few rules he had set that were known very well to all citizens of Kumo. The first was don't diss his raps. The second was don't diss his friends. The third, and probably the most important rule, was don't touch his swords. The one man who had not known that rule, a missing ninja he had fought once, had done just that and been on the ass end of the mother of all ass kickings. By the time B had been done with the man, he had been begging for death. You motherfucker better pray to whatever kami you worship, Kurabi said, for once not being able to rap due to his anger. Cuz I'm gonna be beating your fucking ass. Kurabi then charged at Tobarama, grabbing a hold of 2 of his swords as he rushed the man. The Nadaime waited until B had gotten close enough to strike, and then sent out the sword in his left hand in a thrust, hoping to pierce the dark-skinned man in the heart. It wasn't to be as B twisted his body, spinning around as he brought his right sword up, slashing the man's arm off at the elbow. As he continued his spin, B sent a horizontal slash across the man's chest, slicing into tit with relative ease. Though, it did not go as deep as it could have since Tobarama had jumped back, receiving only a light gash, one that quickly closed up. Bending down, Kurabi retrieved his sword and then looked up. He felt himself getting angry at seeing the man already had his arm back. Da fuck, how does this dude keep doing that? It's that ash-like substance around him B. You say it's da ash hachi. What is dat shit anyways? How should I know you idiot? All I know is that it gathers around him after he receives an injury. So this motherfucker is like some kind of invincible fool. So how do I kill him? He's already dead moron. I don't think you can kill him. What you talkin' about 8-0? Anything can die, if he's already dead, I'll just kill, I am again. B heard a sigh in his mind as his inner demon went silent. It was just a little after talking with his inner demon that he heard the sound of a jutsu being called. Sweeten. Suigaden water release, water fang bullet. A circle of water spikes surrounded B before closing in, attempting to impale and crush him at the same time. However, B was already unsheathing one of his swords, channeling lightning chakra through it as he spun. He released the chakra, creating a shockwave of lightning that decimated the water spikes. Kurabi looked over at the Nadaime with anger as he saw the man, a hand on his sword, and taking a stance. B grabbed and pulled out another blade and charged at the man. In response to this, the Nadaime charged him as well, meeting the dark-skinned man in the center of their battlefield. The sounds of steel clashing echoed throughout the area as the fierce kenjutsu match picked up. The sound of steel on steel echoed across the battlefield as the two continued their fight. Despite his anger at someone else touching one of his swords, Kurabi had to give the Nadaime grudging respect for his ability. The man was extremely good with a blade, able to easily keep up with the 2 that the Hachibi Jinchuriki was wielding. Ducking under a swing, Tobarama came up and attempted to bisect the larger man, only to be blocked as the blade he was using met one of Kurabi's. Less than a second later, the blade in the Jinchuriki's other hand came in with a swing that would take off the Nadaime's head if it hit. However, the white-haired man bent back ever so slightly, letting the blade pass him by. Coming back up, Tobirama swung his blade, but it was blocked by the 2B was using. Said dark-skinned man grunted as he used his strength to push the Nadaime back, sending the man skidding across the floor. In response to this, Tobirama let up the pressure of his sword, dropping down and attempting to sweep the other man's legs out from under him. However, Kurabi had anticipated this and jumped over the leg sweep, spinning around in mid-air and sending an axe kick on Tobirama's head. It would have worked had the Nadaime not already been moving backwards, and so instead, all B hit was the ground. The dark-skinned man stood back up, then swerved to the side in order to dodge Tobirama's downward sword slash. Wanting his blade back, Killer B threw his 2 swords into the air, grabbed another 2 swords and threw them into the air as well, then he grabbed his last 2 swords. Modifying his stance for 6 blades instead of 7, B caught the other swords. The only difference being he no longer had a sword in his mouth, since the one that he used for that was in the Nadaime had in his hands. I float like a butterfly and sting like a bee, it's time to show you why Kurabi is someone you should flee. Kurabi once again began spinning, becoming the near force of nature he was known for. He began tossing his swords into the air, letting them become added variables as he closed the distance between him and the Nadaime. Said shinobi tried to use the blade he had stolen from B to block as many of the attacks as best as he could. However, there were far too many coming in, at the same time, at different angles. They were too fast and too numerous. The blades attacking in such an unpredictable pattern that it was unlikely even a Sharingan user could follow the movements. Tobirama soon began to get sliced again. His left arm was taken off at the shoulder, his right hand, which was holding the sword, was also cut off. And without even missing a beat, Killer B grabbed onto his sword that Tobirama dropped. Tossing it in the air with several others, before he caught the blade in his mouth, he took a new stance, and began to increase the speed of his spin as he pinwheeled into Tobirama. The man now had no way to defend against B, and even though he tried to backpedal it wasn't enough. The Nadaime's head ended up getting sliced vertically in half, his 2 legs got lopped off, one at the knee and the other at mid-calf. His torso was cut into 6 pieces, 4 diagonally and then 1 down the middle. As a finisher, Killer B sliced the man's head off at the neck, and then sliced the head into 16 more pieces before it fell to the ground. By the time B was finished, the Nadaime was just a chunk of flesh. That had to have gotten da motherfucka, if it didn't I don't know how I'm gonna beat this sucka. B had to hold in a growl of annoyance as he saw Tobirama once again healing. This battle was getting utterly ridiculous. No matter what he did, that stupid white-haired prick with the dead eyes kept getting back up like some kind of zombie. That's pretty much what he is. B, I can't believe I got sealed into an idiot like you. Man, this is getting sick, and not in the good kind. But the kind where I'm starting to get ticked. You'll never be able to beat him like this. B. So what would you suggest? Why don't you let me out? I'll pound him back into the dirt. Sounds like a plan, not like anything else can. B resheathed his blades and let out a sigh. He rarely ever used Hachibi's chakra in battle nowadays, since there were very few people who could force him that far. Nowadays he usually only let his tenant out at his vacation spot Unraikyo, Valley of Clouds and Lightning, where his Biju could rampage all he liked and not kill anyone on accident. Raising his hands into the air, Killer B let out a howl that, if Tobirama had emotions, would have had him shaking. Since the man didn't, he just charged, hoping to use this as an opening to defeat the dark-skinned Kumo ninja. However, as he charged forward, he soon found himself being forced back as massive amounts of Yuki began pouring out of B. What was more shocking, was that the amount of Yuki was so large that the water around B began getting pushed back, creating a small circle around him as green Yuki formed into a cloak that covered his entire form. As the dark-skinned man's chakra began rising well past the level that any human could ever hope to produce, it began to take a form around him. The Yuki behind him began to take on the shape of tails, cephalopod-like tails that were reminiscent of an octopus. They formed one by one until there were 8 of them, swaying behind the man in an invisible breeze. The last touches were the 2 horns that were added on top of B's head, bullhorns that swept around in a circle with the tips ending at the back. This should do it, don't you think? 8-0. Kurabi asked. After all, there's no need to go full out on this guy. I couldn't go full out anyways, not with that shield still surrounding us. Well, unless I wanted to destroy the village. Outside of the shield, the Anbu who were watching the battles taking place all gasped. Another demon. Here, shouted an Anbu in a weasel mask. What the hell was Sandaime-sama thinking? Letting a monster like that even enter our village, let alone fight beside him. A tiger-masked Anbu yelled. Shut up. Both of you. Their commander, a man in a cat mask, ordered. Do not question Sandaime-sama's orders. It's obvious this man is an ally. Otherwise he and the Hokage would not risk fighting with him. They could just be hoping to gain our trust, the weasel-masked Anbu pointed out. The cat-masked commander shook his head. I doubt it. Had they wanted to, they could have used the confusion and chaos of the fighting around here to gain the Byakugan, or whatever other bloodline they wanted. Neither of them had to fight this battle, or help Sandaime-sama. And had they not, I am sure Sandaime-sama would have lost this battle in the end, especially fighting against Orochimaru and 2 former Hokages. The other 2 were silent after that, realizing that what their commander said made a lot of sense. They turned back to the battle, wondering what would happen now that the known Jinchuriki was using what looked to be all 8 tails of his Biju. Growled in absolute frustration as he watched Hashirama get back up, his caved-in face and chest re-healing again. This fight had been going on far longer than the Hokage had hoped it would. No matter what he tried, no matter how much damage he had done, the man just kept getting back up and coming for more. With the information A had managed to get on Orochimaru, he had expected to see many strange and bizarre jutsu. But having to fight an undead cage, that would continue fighting and healing at a rate that would make a Jinchuriki jealous, was by far the weirdest. Not to mention the most goddamn frustrating thing he had ever done. Why the hell won't you stay down? A yelled as he charged back in, his Raiden no Yoroi still activate. He pounded his fists in the shodai. Each hit sending a powerful jolt of electricity through the dead cage, not that it actually affected the man. Though it did give him extensive cosmetic damage, leaving dents, smashing bones, burn marks and was even taking off several chunks of flesh. A finished his attack by sending a powerful double fist into the Shodai's chest, launching the man back where he once again crashed into the nearly destroyed ground. The lightning that crackled around the Hokage fizzled out after that. He had been holding the jutsu for nearly 2 hours and the constant drain on his reserves finally caught up, and he was no longer able to keep it up. If that didn't finish him, I don't know what can. Said, breathing in rather heavily. It was much to his displeasure, though no longer his surprise that he watched Hashirama get back up with his wounds already healed. As the man charged at him, grunted and began his own charge. He was beginning to regret lending aid to Sarutobi. He had originally done it as a small form of compensation for A. allowing him to watch the Chunin exams. B. actually informing him about the coming invasion, since the man was in no way obligated to actually do so. C. get revenge on Orochimaru for stealing several children with Kekkei Genkei from his village. And finally D. to in some way make up for the Hyuga debacle that his father, the Sandaime Hokage, had created. However, he felt he was getting far more than he had bargained for in this battle. Sure, he actually kind of had some fun at first. It had been a long time since he could simply go all out on his opponents and having them get back up from the beating he gave so he could give another. But now it was just annoying. He was tired, he was nearly out of chakra, and this son of a bitch kept coming no matter what he did. Therefore it was fortunate for him that the Sandaime arrived when he did, jumping in front of the charging Hashirama and latching onto the man's shoulders. Much to the surprise of A, the Shodai stopped all movements and emotion flickered into the man's eyes for the first time since the battle started. I am sorry, old friend, Sarutobi apologized as he began to pull the soul of his sensei out of the body. Do not be, little Saru, Hashirama said. I am pleased to see you are willing to go so far to protect our home. With those parting words, the Shodai collapsed into ash, and the body of an Oto shinobi fell out. What the hell? The Hokage muttered in perplexed confusion. I spent 2 hours beating him to a pulp and you just grab him by the shoulders and that's it. Sarutobi turned around and smiled at the man. It was then that he saw the complex seal on the old Hokage's stomach. Thank you for your help, Hokage Dono. The old man then disappeared in a puff of smoke, revealing him to be a Kage Bunshin. Aside. Well, at least now I'm done fighting. I'm almost looking forward to getting back to paperwork. Kurabi crouched down as he began channeling Hachibi's Yuki into his legs in such massive quantities that the tiles under him began to crack. Then he shot forward, the power and speed being so much that the force caused the entire section of the roof he was on to explode and then collapse. This gave B several added benefits. The first was all the water now draining through the hole he had made. And the second was that his speed was so great, Tobirama could only just barely spot him as a green blur. It was thanks to this that the man was unable to do anything as B sent a punch right into his abdomen. If the Nadaime could have felt pain, he would have screamed as his stomach compressed in on itself. Time seemed to stand still for all of 2 seconds as the force of B's fist lodged itself in his stomach made itself known by sending out a ripple in the air. A second later time reasserted itself and Tobirama was sent flying backwards, skipping across the ground like a rag doll and causing many of the tiles to break each time he hit the roof. His momentum was stopped however, when one of the many tails on the Hachibi Jinchuriki's back took on not a more solid form and launched itself at the still skidding cage. It grabbed him by the arm and Kurabi, who was several meters away, willed his tail up, making the appendage move into the air and lift Tobirama with it, right before it smashed him back into the ground. The kinetic force caused by the white-haired former Hokage smacking into the roof was enough to cause a large explosion, sending massive amounts of debris flying everywhere. Tobirama stood up and jumped out of the crater. However, all that seemed to do was make him a target for B, who once again grabbed a hold of him with 2 more of his tails. With a fierce yank, the Nadaime was sent flying towards Killer B who had launched himself into the air, spinning around so that his foot was pointing towards Tobirama. One of the tails that were swishing behind B was sucked back into his cloak, before forming what amounted to a spear point on his foot. Rariato! B shouted as his foot connected with Tobirama's chest, impaling the man right before he was sent flying. Not quite done yet, B grabbed onto the Nadaime's body again, this time when he was above the white-haired man. Kurabi yanked Tobirama upwards, while he was flying down and proceeded to lay a double stomp kick into the Nadaime's chest. The sheer force of this attack not only sent the Nadaime back down, crashing into the ground with such force that it created a large crater, but also hard enough that Tobirama had lost nearly 2/3 of his body in the attack, leaving only his head and half of his torso and right arm. B landed on the ground and looked at the destruction he had caused with a smirk. Now that's what I'm talking about, let's see him rise from this shit, there's no way he can take that kind of hit. Killer B said in a growling demonic voice. Sweeten. Tepudama water release, gunshot. B cursed as several powerful water bullets were launched at him. Using the Hachibi's Yuki, he swatted at the Jutsu, causing them to disperse on impact. Sweeten. Suiryuden no Jutsu. B looked up as he heard the voice and was just in time to see a water dragon form in the air and launch itself at him. Kurabi began to swear as he tried to think of a way to destroy the water dragon, but found none, well, none that were feasible anyway. He had full control of his tenant's Yuki, so if he wanted to, he could go into his second stage where he took on the likeness of his Biju. That would essentially increase his power by nearly 10 times, but it would also mean he would end up destroying half of Konoha in the process. And while this was not his village, there was not much point in helping fight off the invasion, if he ended up destroying half of the village that was being invaded while doing so. Unable to really come up with anything good, Kurabi sent all of the tails into his arms, forming 2 wicked-looking drills that vaguely resembled horns. He then rushed at the water dragon, thrusting his drill-covered fists out and plowing through the jutsu. Surprisingly enough, the jutsu gave with little resistance, and while he expected to have defeated it in the end, it was far easier than he thought it should be. Even more surprising was the sight of Sarutobi holding onto the Nadaime by the shoulders. Kurabi could see the pair talking in a hushed tone, which was also surprising, given that the man had been dead to the world for their entire fight. After that, Tobirama seemed to turn into ash and a pale white Oto Kunoichi fell out of it. Oi, what just happened? How did you beat that fool, when I was unable to? B asked as he walked up to the old Sandaime. Sarutobi turned around and sighed, I beat him with the only way I could think of. Killer B blinked before noticing the seal on his stomach, a seal that was much like his Biju containing one, only more complex. I see, not quite way I expected him to be beat, but it sure is good now that I get to turn off the heat. With those words the Yuki cloak disappeared. Sarutobi looked at B with a smirk before disappearing in a burst of smoke. Kurabi looked at where the man had been, before turning his attention to the dead Kunoichi. Sighing, he knelt down and closed her eyes, feeling disgusted by Orochimaru, who would use his own ninja as pawns and sacrifices to further his goals. This was one of the few times he did not feel any desire to bust out in rhyme. Chapter 27, One Bad Mother. Naruto continued running down the streets of Konoha, keeping out of sight for the most part. The only time he ever revealed himself were when he had to either save one of the villagers, whom his clones and the other genin had not found, or kill an enemy shinobi. Quite often those two came hand in hand. He continued to use the back alleys and side streets to get to the spot where some of his clones had started dispelling. As he turned a corner, he heard a voice cry out, "Tsubaki number might dance of the camellia." Naruto swore as he was forced to dodge what looked very similar to a spinal cord. The odd-looking weapon continued striking at the blonde as he continued to weave through the attacks. He winced a bit as one of the strikes managed to graze his shoulder, however Kyuubi and his own healing factor took care of the wound in a matter of seconds. Thankfully he managed to jump back after the man stopped his attacks. "Your ability to dodge my attacks is most impressive. I can see now why Orochimaru-sama wishes to have you." Naruto blinked at the teenager who looked a few years older than him. He was pale white with white hair, and 2 red dots on his forehead. He was wearing a white kimono with an open chest and a purple rope tying it together. "Yeah, well, you can tell Orochimaru that he's not my type," the blonde responded as glibly as possible, not liking how wrong the pale teen's words sounded. "Personally, I have no desire to get fucked in the rectal by some pedophiliac snake, or anyone else really." Kimimaro seemed to ignore the crass comment as he prepared another assault. "I will be dragging you back with me to Orochimaru-sama, whether you wish it or not." "It seems we're at a crossroads then, because there is no way in all 9 levels of hell that I'm getting dragged to that sick fuck," Naruto shot back. "Damn," Naruto thought as he unsealed a katana. "Judging from the way this guy holds that blade, he is definitely talented with it, maybe even a master swordsman. I doubt I could even beat Tenten right now with how tired I am, and I doubt Tenten could beat him. He could use his staff, of course. However, he also knew that using his staff would not work as well against this one. The key to successfully using the bow staff while in single combat was in the ability to keep an opponent out of range while you bombarded them with fast yet fluid attacks. Despite having been caught off guard, Naruto had seen the way the bone sword had dislocated themselves and given the white-haired teen a longer reach. Meaning keeping his distance with this guy would not matter as his sword could just extend to attack him. You know, it's normally tradition for 2 warriors to give their names before their epic clash. Naruto slid into a Baitujutsu stance. "The name's Uzumaki Naruto, I suggest you remember it since I'm the one who's gonna kick your ass." Kimimaro took up his own stance as he looked at the blonde. "My name is Kagaya Kimimaro." With that he attacked. Naruto cursed as Kimimaro appeared right next to him and sent several powerful swings and jabs at him. Thankfully, while the teen was fast, Naruto was nearly just as fast and had lightning-fast reflexes that allowed him to keep up. As Kimimaro came in with a slash, the blonde shinobi drew his blade from its sheath faster than the eye could blink. Naruto locked his blade with Kimimaro's and twisted it so that both blades were on the ground. Using the 2 grounded swords as leverage, Naruto snapped a kick at Kimimaro that smashed into the white-haired teen's head. Kimimaro stumbled back a bit, but not by much, and regained his balance in time to dodge several thrusts and slashes from Naruto. It became very obvious that Kimimaro was faster, his attacks were more precise, while Naruto's style was more fluid, moving in from attack to block to parry. Every move was designed to set the blonde up for another, flowing much like water. Kimimaro came in with several powerful and precise thrusts, but Naruto backpedaled and used his blade to divert the attacks from himself. When the man had finished his attacks, Naruto launched his own. He came in with a right diagonal swing, one which Kimimaro managed to block. However, Naruto pushed off against Kimimaro's blade and used the force of the swing to spin around in another slashing attack. When that was also blocked, the blonde pushed Kimimaro back, while the blonde decided to disengage and jumped back. Not wanting to let up with his assault just yet, Naruto charged forward, sliding under an incoming swing from Kimimaro's bone sword. At the same time he slashed at the white-haired teen's legs, hoping to take them out. But it was not to be, as Kimimaro jumped over his attack and came down with a powerful blow. Naruto was able to roll out of the way and push himself up just in time to block the next sword stroke that came his way. Jumping back to gain a bit of space, the blonde shinobi began to channel wind chakra into his blade. He rushed back in and made a thrust, hoping to impale Kimimaro in the chest. However, those hopes were dashed when his opponent used his own blade to knock the thrust off course, sidestepping at the same time, before spinning around in and spinning his bone sword in a swing that would likely take his head off. Naruto only just managed to duck under the swing, grimacing when he felt some of his hair get cut off to let him know just how close he had come to losing his head. He came back up and with an upward swing, one that Kimimaro dodged by jumping back. Naruto followed, however, staying on the white-haired teen's tail as he continued making several slashes and jabs at Kimimaro. In response, Kimimaro slid into a stance and began to dance around the blade, letting his own sword take the brunt of the damage. Seeing that he was going nowhere, Naruto jumped back and frowned. He looked at the bone blade, then at his glowing green sword in consternation. He had been channeling his wind chakra through his blade, so that should have been able to shear through that bone sword like it was paper. He knew he had to find whatever the reason was for his wind chakra not affecting that sword like it should, otherwise he would be at a serious disadvantage. With that mindset, Naruto began attacking again. The two continued their battle, yet neither was able to land a hit on the other. Whenever Naruto got the upper hand, Kimimaro would slip away before coming back into attack. When Kimimaro seemed to have the advantage, Naruto would pull some trick out of his ass and force the bone user back. Finally, Naruto saw a small opening and parried the next attack before lashing out with a kick. It was only instincts that saved Naruto, making him stop as Kimimaro tried to grab onto his leg. It was then that Naruto saw the bony points sticking out of his hands, and his knees, elbows and shoulders. What the fuck is that? Are those bones? This is my bloodline, Kimimaro said as he studied his bony protrusions. It's called Shikatsumyaku, dead bone pulse, and it allows me to use my bones as weapons and change their density. So that's how his bones were able to withstand my wind chakra. Naruto narrowed his eyes. He was able to change the density so much that it was simply too hard for even wind to cut through. I have to admit that is one freaky ass bloodline, and considering I know this dude with red eyes, another one who uses bugs, and another kid who has white eyes, that's saying something. Naruto grinned cheekily as he got back into his stance. Well, come on, albino boy, show me what you've got. Very well, Kimimaro moved forward, intent on defeating this boy so that he could become Orochimaru's newest tool. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Several dozen clones popped into existence and charged the Kagaya. Normally Naruto would never resort to spamming clones and just sending them in. He much preferred to throw himself into the midst of battle and fight in one-on-one combat. However, like when he had fought Neji, Naruto knew he needed to know more about this enemy's fighting ability before he could come up with a solid plan. In hindsight, it was an excellent idea, since the moment Naruto's clones reached Kimimaro they were dispelled. With the new bones that Kimimaro had sticking out of his body, it was like sending his clones into a woodcutter factory. The Kagaya managed to cut and hack into the clones like a buzz saw, seemingly walking straight through them without any noticeable effort. Naruto frowned and was just about to attack again, when a yellow, black and purple blur shot out of one of the streets and smashed into Kimimaro. The Kagaya was launched away and crashed into a building several feet away. That was when the blur stopped and Naruto saw who it was. Yugi-chan. A large smile broke out across Naruto's face. I thought you would have still been back at the stadium. Yugito looked at the spiky-haired blonde and gave him a grin. I figured Hatake-san and the other Jonin could handle the ninja there. I decided to see where I could help the most. She put her hands on her hips and gave Naruto a small pout. You know, it was pretty damn difficult to find you. I got out of the stadium looking for you and lo and behold, what do I find, but nearly 300 Narutos running amok. And then I find the real you, only to see you've gotten yourself in a fight with someone else. The blonde woman gave a small shake of her head and a dramatic sigh. Really, what am I going to do with you? Naruto gave his fellow blonde a deadpan look. You can't blame this on me. Murphy's Law simply loves me like this. Besides, we are at war. I don't think I would be doing my job if I wasn't knee-deep in this kind of shit. Well, when you put it that way, Yugito was cut off when she was forced to dodge several odd-looking projectiles. Jumping away, she landed next to Naruto. Deciding that their little verbal sparring could wait, she looked at the blonde male she had taken a liking to. Why don't you head out? It looks like you have a previous engagement. Naruto grimaced, so you heard the screaming to He jumped onto one of the roofs and took off. I'll find some way to thank you afterwards. Oh, I could think of plenty of ways for you to thank me, Naruto-kun, Yugito muttered as she watched the albino step out of the wall. Do not think you will stop me from Orochimaru-sama's wish. Kimimaro whipped his sword arm around a few times. I will take that boy to Orochimaru-sama. Yugito smirked. I'm sorry, but I've taken something of a shine to him, so neither you, nor your snake of a master will be laying a hand on him. Then I will have to kill you before I capture him. Kimimaro charged at Yugito, who merely widened the smirk that was gracing her features. As soon as the albino launched his attack, Yugito used her agility to dodge every single strike he sent, before lashing out with a kick that sent him flying. I'm sorry, but there is no way you're gonna be killing me, Yugito said as she slid into a combat stance. But I do so enjoy a good battle, so at least try not to die too quickly. Gaara snarled as he crushed another one of those infernal blondes only for it to go up in smoke. Uzumaki. Where are you? Come out and fight me. Gaara jumped onto the roof and attempted to search for the blonde boy. He didn't get the chance. The moment he had landed, a foot met his face hard enough to send him flying off the roof and onto the ground. He stood up from the small crater that his body created and looked up. When he saw who it was, an insane grin came to his face. Ah. I'm so glad to see you here, Uzumaki. Now it's time I can prove my existence. I will kill you and prove my existence. Naruto would have made a comment, but Gaara had already shot off the ground and was coming at him with that powerful-looking sand claw. Naruto waited until Gaara attacked, and was not disappointed when the unstable Jinchuriki launched his clawed hand at him. However, Naruto neatly ducked under the attack, shooting forward as he began a set of hand seals. Once he reached the boy's torso, he made a slashing motion with his hand. Fuden, Kei's no Yaiba. A blade of wind hit Gaara point blank, however Naruto was surprised to see it did not penetrate the sand. What the fuck? That should have sliced straight through him. Naruto had made the discovery that his wind attacks were nearly twice as powerful when he used hand seals. He believed it had something to do with the hand seals automatically molding his attack, rather than him having to mold the attack with his own control when he was doing his freestyle wind jutsu. Whatever the case was, that attack should have sheared through Gaara, and since it did not, it meant that the sand he was wearing was infused with his tenant's yuki. Not a very pleasant thought for the blonde. He was forced to use a kawarimi in order to escape the claw that came back towards him. He looked over at Gaara, who had not seemed to notice where he was yet, and tried to think of some way to defeat him. Sighing, he went through several more hand seals before sucking in a deep breath. Kaden, Gukaku no Jutsu. The giant fireball slammed into Gaara, making the redhead scream in pain. Naruto was left panting as he finished his jutsu. He realized that he would not be able to use many more with the amount of yuki he had been pumping out today, even he had his limits. He was knocked out of his thoughts when he heard laughing. Looking over to where the smoke from his fireball was starting to dissipate, he saw Gaara, laughing maniacally as more sand began to cover his body, forming another clawed hand on his right and covering the rest of him. Naruto held in a curse as he saw that Gaara now looked like a miniature tanuki with only his legs not being uncovered. Yes, this feeling, this pain, Gaara shouted as he turned towards Naruto. This is what I've been waiting for. The chance to kill an opponent that can bring me such pain. This battle will be the one to truly prove my existence. I'm glad I can make you feel so special, Naruto replied in a voice that was laden in sarcasm. However, you won't be killing me anytime soon. But tell you what, I'll make this ass kicking I give you extra special so that you'll feel more alive. Ha 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 ha, you truly are an amusing one, Uzumaki. Gaara howled in laughter. I'm sure your death will truly make me feel alive. Gaara jumped at Naruto faster than the blonde thought possible, given the fact that the redhead was covered in sand. Thankfully, it still wasn't fast enough to warrant any serious concern, and Naruto was able to dodge the redhead. Unfortunately, Naruto had missed the small flash of a tail, and he was unable to dodge that as it smacked him in the side. Naruto was sent flying away from Gaara and crashed into one of the many stores that lined the street of this sector. Groaning, he sat up and pulled off the fabric that was on his head. He brought it to his dazed eyes and blinked as he saw that he was holding a black lacy bra. Great, of all the stores I crash into, it just happens to be a women's apparel store. Something tells me karma is trying to play a joke. He threw the bras away and stood up, shaking the debris off before making his way outside. He jumped back up on one of the roofs and found Gaara coming at him, still laughing like a maniac. Looking around, he realized that he was at a disadvantage in such an urban area. He needed a place where he could set loads of traps since he was unable to really use any jutsu. Decision made, he took off towards one of the many parks in Konoha. Kimimaro grunted as he was kicked away from the blonde woman again. He was quickly becoming frustrated with her. Nothing he did seemed to be capable of defeating her. So far he had tried everything he could to get in close and eliminate the blonde Kumoku no Ichi. Yet she seemed to be far faster and better than he was, since none of his attacks thus far had worked, and he had only received more damage for his troubles. The narrowing of his eyes being the only sign of his frustration, he attacked again. However, like the last dozen times he had attacked, nothing he did seemed to do anything. Yugito weaved in between the attacks, using her great flexibility to dodge at seemingly impossible angles. As the attacks increased in intensity, Yugito waited for the openings that always appeared when people got frustrated. She finally found one and weaved herself under a powerful sword swing, right before she lashed out with a kick to Kimimaro's chest. However, she became surprised when a ribcage jutted out of his chest and caught her foot. Kimimaro spun around, taking Yugito with him as the woman tried to get out of his grasp. She did, and was sent flying towards a building for her troubles. Luckily for her, it seemed that having a cat demon sealed inside of her gave her the ability to always land on her feet. She channeled some chakra into the soles of her feet and clung to the wall, looking over at Kimimaro. Karamatsu number my dance of the larch, Kimimaro exclaimed as he ran towards the blonde. Yugito jumped off the building and landed a few feet away from the albino. Seconds later the pair clashed and Yugito narrowed her eyes as she found it much harder to get an attack in with the new bone protrusions jutting out. She was forced to dodge the attacks and jump away to gain some distance. She went through a few hand seals as Kimimaro came back at her. Raiden. Reikyu, lightning release, lightning ball. A cannon-sized ball made of lightning appeared in front of Yugito, who launched it at the Kagaya. Kimimaro was forced to roll to the left in order to dodge the attack, letting it sail on to hit a store and explode in a shower of sparks. He got back onto his feet and surged forward. When he reached Yugito, he began to spin, lashing out with not just his feet and fists, but also using the protrusions on his body to attack. Yugito had to backpedal since nearly every part of the Kagaya was now a weapon. She was forced to continue moving until she saw a small opening. Yugito timed her attack to Kimimaro's, dodging his first attack before smashing her fist into his face. As the Kagaya stumbled back, Yugito gave him a kick to the ribs, before spinning and launching a snap kick to his shoulder. As Kimimaro tumbled back, Yugito came in with another kick, this one to the head. Kimimaro's head snapped up, looking almost like he had broken it as his body jerked the opposite way. He landed in a heap a little ways away, only to get back up a moment later. Yugito charged in again, her attacks increasing in power, speed and viciousness as she attempted to do some kind of damage. Kimimaro became hard-pressed to avoid her attacks. The intensity of her assault was actually making him stagger back. He tried to attack several times, however Yugito was always able to dodge the attack and launched one of her own. He received a snap kick to the face that sent him stumbling back, allowing Yugito room to perform several hand seals. Kaiten. Howringu Neko, howling cats. Yugito slammed her hands on the ground, causing fire to burst up and take the shape of several tiger-sized fire cats with two tails. They hissed as they launched themselves at Kimimaro, who did his best to dodge. However, they seemed to have an intelligence of their own, since they would follow him wherever he went. It only got worse when Yugito came into the picture, as the cats seemed to utilize teamwork with her. Several times Kimimaro would either get burned, or get a fist or foot to the face for his troubles. Trying to gain some distance, Kimimaro jumped onto the building. Thankfully, two of the cats hit the building, causing them to explode. However, the others managed to leap up and follow him, forcing him to jump around the village rooftops so as to keep his distance. He was very lucky when he managed to lead the other 4 fire cats to their demise, using the village's building against them. However, before he had time to breathe a sigh of relief, Yugito came at him again. Kimimaro was forced to dodge Yugito's next barrage of attacks. weaving between strikes as he tried to get a strike in edgewise, only to fail as Yugito's strikes came in fast and hard. Kimimaro blocked the kick sent his way with the bony outcroppings on his elbow, however Yugito pushed herself off of Kimimaro's elbow. Spinning around, she slammed her foot into the albino's face, knocking Kimimaro back. Yugito used the new space to begin going through several hand seals. Kaiten, Heineka, fire release, ash cat. A large cloud of ash blew out of Yugito's mouth, taking the shape of a two-tailed cat. It charged towards Kimimaro, who only had time to look up as the ash flew towards him. It began to cut into his skin before settling down. However, that was not the end of it, and soon Kimimaro began to feel the ash burning his body. His skin began to burn off, making the Kagaya hard-pressed not to scream in pain. Yugito paused in her attack to see if she had killed the Kagaya clan member. Only to be shocked when she saw Kimimaro was still alive, albeit a lot of his skin was melted off and burnt, showing the bones of his ribcage, his jaw, and the bones of his arms and legs. That was a most intense attack, Kimimaro commented. Had I been anyone else, I am sure that would have killed me. This time, I'll make sure my next attack does kill you. Yugito ground out, getting annoyed at the amount of punishment this guy was taking. She rushed towards him, launching strike after strike on Kimimaro's body. She noticed that despite the amount of hits she rained down on him, the boy's body did not seem to be getting any real damage. Yugito launched a snap kick to Kimimaro's head, before twisting around and jumping in midair as she smashed one foot into his chest and the other ground against his pelvis. Kimimaro tried to come in with several spinning and jabbing maneuvers, but like always, Yugito weaved through the attacks with cat-like grace. As she danced around the slashes and jabs, Yugito got in close and landed several powerful blows along Kimimaro's torso, sending the white-haired team stumbling back. He continued to get pushed back, taking hits everywhere on his body. He did his best to dodge the blonde woman, hoping he could attack her when she left an opening. It came when Yugito attempted to get in close, and land a heel kick on him. He spun around, hoping one of his bony outcroppings would catch her unawares. Unfortunately for him, Yugito, even though she was caught slightly by surprise, was more than capable to dodging his attack. Taking a chance, Yugito came forward again and rolled under a leg, before twisting herself into a spin and doing to the splits. Yugito's feet smashed into Kimimaro's face, knocking him off balance and sending him stumbling back. Yugito used the opportunity and jumped back up, pulling out a kunai as she began to assault the Kagaya. Kimimaro soon found himself unable to do nothing more than dodge as Yugito viciously slashed into him, making several cuts on the albino when he was not fast enough to dodge. Kimimaro was very thankful for his bloodline, knowing that many of these cuts would have killed others. Yugito saw that her cuts did not seem to be doing much of anything, and began to channel lightning chakra through her kunai. The next time she made a gash on Kimimaro's form, the albino was shocked to see it actually leave markings on one of his ribs. He was forced to jump back as he received several more cuts along his body. Unfortunately for him, Yugito had moved faster than he had been able to follow, dropping on the ground and landing a vicious double stomp kick to him. The young Kagaya was sent flying backwards, crashing through the door to a building several feet away. Kimimaro stood back up and looked out of the building to see Yugito still standing there. He walked out and looked at her with a blank expression. "You are strong." The black marks of his cursed seal began to spread along his body. "To cut my bones even a little bit, had you been fighting anyone else, I believe you would have won. However, do not think that just because you have been able to keep me from killing you so far, means you can defeat me. I have not even begun to get started. It's time I revealed my true power." "Great." Yugito groaned. "I should have realized you would be some kind of freak since you work for Orochimaru. However, I hope you don't believe that whatever you are doing will allow you to beat me. I'm not considered the second strongest ninja in Kumo for nothing. Come back here, Uzumaki. Come back and face me." Gaara yelled as he chased Naruto into one of the many parks that were in Konoha. It had been hard to get here. Naruto had been forced to constantly dodge Gaara's attacks, while at the same time making sure he had stayed in sight of the crazed redhead. It was because of this he had not been able to get over to the parks unscathed. His body was littered with numerous cuts and bruises from when Gaara had managed to smash his claws into him. Thankfully they were being healed by Kyuubi and his own impressive regeneration and would not leave any permanent markings. "Oh, shut the fuck up," Naruto shouted back as he dodged another sand claw. "Who the hell said I was running, you little bitch? I just felt like a fucking change in venue. With all the goddamn property damage you seem to cause in a battle, I didn't want to deal with the shit it would raise after I kick your ass." Gaara laughed as he landed a few feet away from Naruto. "You are quite entertaining, Uzumaki. Do you actually think you can win? I've seen the way you fight. You fight for others rather than yourself. That makes you weak. Unlike you, I fight only for myself, I love only myself, and I live for only myself. It's because of this that I am strong. You cannot defeat me. You know, with the way you keep running those fucking lips of yours, you're beginning to remind me of Neji. Only rather than being some fate-driven bastard, you're just one insane motherfucker." Naruto frowned, and fighting for others is not a weakness. If you're too stupid to know what true strength is, then I guess I'll have to show you by kicking your ass Uzumaki style. Bring it, Uzumaki. Show me this strength of yours. Show me so that when I crush you, I will prove myself to the world. Gaara jumped at Naruto, lashing out with a claw. Naruto jumped out of the way, letting the tree branch he was on take the damage as he landed on a tree several feet away. He looked up to see Gaara had grabbed onto a branch with one of his clawed hands and was using it to swing himself around. Naruto waited until the last moment to slide under another one of Gaara's sand claws, placing multiple explosive notes along his arm. Flipping over Gaara, Naruto smashed his feet into the back of the other genin's head, making the redhead stumble forward. He placed his hand in a hand seal and smirked. Boom. Gaara let out a roar of pain and frustration as his left arm exploded, shooting sand everywhere. However, the sand quickly reformed and the red-headed, unstable Jinchuriki turned his attention back on the blonde, launching himself at Naruto with even more fervor. Snarling, Gaara raised one of his clawed hands, sand beginning to form sharp and pointy shapes along his arm. "Soon a shuriken, sand shuriken." The genin turned monster announced as he tossed several dozen sand projectiles at Naruto. The blonde's eyes widened ever so slightly before he regained control and began to weave through the hailstorm. While he was not as agile as, say, Yugito, he was still able to dodge the projectiles. However, as soon as he had finished dodging, Gaara had just finished his preparation to attack. Using his clawed arms to grab onto a pair of trees he was standing between, leaning back before using the leverage to shoot off like a rocket. Naruto could only look up in shock as Gaara came towards him at speed something so large and unwieldy should not be capable of making. Naruto had no time to react as Gaara launched one of his clawed hands at the blonde's chest and swatted him away. Naruto bit down a yelp that threatened to escape him as he was sent rocketing away, smashing through a tree before hitting another one hard enough to leave an indent. Naruto groaned as he fell to the branch below him, spitting out some of the blood that had congealed in his mouth when he bit his cheek. He stood up and hissed a bit as he felt his ribs mending themselves back together. When it was finished, he looked around and blinked when he did not see Gaara anywhere. However, he instantly realized that anytime Gaara disappeared it was probably not a good thing. He jumped off the tree branch he had been on, and just in time too. For as soon as he did, Gaara dropped down right on top of the spot Naruto had been standing on, shattering the branch like it was made of clay and sending a shower of bark everywhere. Gaara landed on the ground and looked for Naruto, snarling when he could not find the blonde. "Where are you, Uzumaki? Are you afraid of me?" He chuckled maniacally as a smile came to his face. "That's it, isn't it? You fear me. Because unlike you, I fight only for myself. While you fight for others and it makes you weak." Naruto rolled his eyes. "Are we going over this again? Don't be stupid, Gaara, I don't fear you." Gaara looked around as the voice seemed to echo everywhere. "However, I'm also not stupid enough to fight someone like you head on. The basic shinobi rule has always been for ninja to fight from the shadows, a lesson that seems to have been forgotten long ago when flashy jutsu came into the picture. That's why I've decided to kick it up old school to kick your tanuki ass." Naruto came up from the ground behind Gaara and slapped an exploding tag on his back. "Sayonara, bitch." Naruto leapt away as Gaara swung an arm to smack him, but the blonde nearly ducked under it and placed another exploding tag on him. Growling, Gaara tried again, spinning around and hoping to catch the blonde off guard, but Naruto had predicted this and placed his hand on the other arm as he jumped over, leaving another exploding note on the redhead. Naruto closed the distance and put an explosive note on Gaara's chest, before leaping over him when the sand-covered genin attempted to swipe at him. As a last act, Naruto slapped an explosive note on the back of his head before jumping away and forming a hand sign. Katsu. Boom. A large explosion consumed Gaara's form and the sound blocked out the redhead's cry of pain. An entire 20-foot radius around the redhead also disappeared, taking many of the trees with it and creating a shockwave that knocked down many more. Naruto landed several dozen feet away from the explosion and smirked as he took in the power of his customized explosive notes had. Now that's what I'm talking about. The blonde crouched down on a branch and tried to look into the dust his explosion had kicked up. Did I get him? No, Kyuubi piped up for the first time since the battle began. I can still feel the Tanuki's Yuki swirling and gathering around the redhead. You've definitely injured him, but he's still alive. Damn. Naruto sighed as the explosion cleared to reveal Gaara. The red-headed Jinchuriki was definitely injured. The sand that had surrounded him was falling off in globs, making it look like melting skin. He was breathing fairly heavily and was hunched over. Uzumaki. Uzumaki. Gaara shouted as he turned towards the blonde genin, I will kill you. I will. You will die by my hand and prove my existence. You've been saying that for the past several hours, yet you have yet to actually come through on that threat, Naruto shot back. Face it, all the power in the world means nothing without finesse. Which you, my Tanuki friend, lack. This coming from the one who just blew up half a park, Kyuubi piped up. Don't get snippy with me, Miss destroys entire mountains with a single swipe of her tails. The amount of mass destruction I caused was completely unintended and I only used those explosive notes because I can't use jutsu. Unlike you, who simply prefers to destroy everything she sets her sights on when she transforms into a giant nine-tailed fuzzy. Ooh, big words coming from such a small kid. Perhaps you should come inside the seal and we can settle this little account now, and I can beat your ass in my human form just to show you how powerless you are in front of me. As tempting as it is to get smacked around by such a beautiful woman, we're going to need to hold off on that. It looks like our little Tanuki is getting ready to attack again. Naruto was right as Gaara was now barreling towards him, using his arms to launch himself further across the ground. Naruto jumped deeper into the forest where he decided to continue playing his game of cat and mouse, though with how the battle had progressed, it was hard to tell who was the cat and who was the mouse. As Naruto continued to jump, he set an explosive note on one of the branches, and the moment Gaara leapt onto that branch ignited it, letting Gaara be caught up in another, albeit smaller explosion. However, Gaara merely barreled through it, using his arms as protection from the explosion. Q-chan, how's my Yuki? The blonde asked as he dodged a claw swipe from Gaara. Well, I've been pumping your reserves with my own, so I would say around 50% again. You know, you're very lucky you're a Hanyu, otherwise I would not be able to do this and you would be dead from overexposure to my Yuki. In the month-long training period, Naruto had for the most part come to terms with the fact that he was no longer human. While it still bothered him that he would outlive all of his friends and loved ones, and he doubted he would tell anyone of his status, he could at the very least recognize the benefits being a half-demon had. So instead of getting upset at the reminder of his status, Naruto merely grinned, then I guess I have to thank you for giving me such an amazing ability, Q-chan. Well, when you're done with the Tanuki you can come in here and thank me properly, Naruto-kun. Despite the situation, Naruto blushed a bit at Kyuubi's seductive tone. Somehow the blonde should have known the vixen would continue teasing him even if they were in a life-and-death situation. Shikamaru was right, women are troublesome. He shook his head to get his mind out of the gutter that her words invoked thanks to all of the sexual situations he had been in the past few hours. Instead he turned his attention back towards the mentally unstable Gaara. Gaara leapt towards Naruto, launching a claw at the blonde, who nearly jumped over it and began to run across the arm. However, the redhead wasn't about to let Naruto do that, and sent out his other arm in the hopes of impaling his enemy. It wasn't to be, as Naruto used the tree-climbing ability to stick under the redhead's arm and continued running towards him. The blonde began doing several hand seals, and as soon as he was right in Gaara's face, he thrust his linked fists towards the redhead. Fuden. Kamikaze Saiken. Two wind-shaped fists pounded into Gaara's form, sending several gouts of sand flying off as two fist-shaped indents formed on his chest. However, other than make the redhead stumble back, nothing else seemed to happen. Not that, that would deter Naruto, who had already begun another set of hand seals. Fuden. Suin Kamikaze no Tatsumaki, Wind Release. Double Tornadoes of the Divine Wind. Naruto thrust out his fists as he jumped away from Gaara, and two fist-sized tornadoes shot towards the red head. Gaara brought his claws in front of his face in order to protect him. The tornadoes hit, smashing into Gaara's arms, and this time the jutsu ended up tearing them apart. The sheer force of the jutsu sent Gaara sailing backwards to smash into several trees, shattering them and sending him flying before he hit the ground below. Naruto panted a bit as he let the jutsu go. He looked over where Gaara was lying down, looking for all the world like a puddle of sand. I think I got him pretty good with that last attack. Stupid fucking sandbag. Maybe now I can get some sleep. This guy, Gaara muttered as he struggled to get off the ground. He looked over at Naruto, who was too busy cheering about how he would finally get some sleep to pay attention to the unstable Jinchuriki. There's no way I'll lose to a guy like that. Naruto, who had been hoping to get some kind of break, felt his eyes widen as a huge spike in both chakra and Yuki came over him, originating from Gaara. Oh shit. Don't tell me he can transform again. Naruto was forced to jump back as Gaara became completely immersed in sand, swelling until he reached the sky. The blonde couldn't keep the whistle from escaping him as he stared at the now gigantic Tanuki. His eyes could just barely make out Gaara on top of him. For a long moment all fighting within the village ceased as they caught sight of the large one-tailed demon. The mere sight caused fear amongst a lot of the Konoha shinobi who remembered the battle against the Kyuubi. Yugito smashed her fist against Kimamaro's face, sending him rocketing back and into another building. She smirked as she felt the power of Nibi flowing through her. This battle had turned out to be a little more than she had expected once the Pale Kid had let loose with his cursed seal, though once she had released her Biju's power the cursed seal seemed to pale in comparison. The purple energy of Nibi had entirely encased the blonde's form, taking the shape of a cat with two swishing tails behind her. Thanks to her intense training from an early age, Yugito was able to use Nibi's powers to its full potential without giving into the bloodlust that was inherent with the use of Yuki. Almost as soon as Kimamaro stood back up, Yugito was on him, swiping at him with her now Yuki-covered hands. The attack tore away chunks of Kimamaro's flesh, and sent the albino spinning away. Kimamaro landed on the ground with a thud. He looked up and was forced to roll out of the way as Yugito came crashing down, smashing a foot into the spot he had just previously been and leaving a small crater when she hit. Almost as soon as Kimamaro stood back up, Yugito was upon him. Her speed was nearly triple what it had been before, and Kimamaro, despite his cursed seal, was completely unable to keep up. He tried his best, lashing out when the rare occasion presented itself. However, Yugito was able to either block, or dodge the attack entirely, right before she would lash out with an attack of her own. Her fighting style, despite being nearly 30 times more vicious, was just as fluid as it had been from the start. Yugito snap-kicked Kimamaro in the face, once again sending the boy rocketing back. As soon as he got up he tried to use his spine sword to lash out against Yugito. However, the blonde merely weaved underneath the attack, before her hand grabbed onto it and pulled him towards her. Yugito smashed her fist into Kimamaro's chest, letting go of the bone blade as the white-haired teen was sent back again. Kimamaro resisted a groan as he stood back up. This girl was a major problem. Their battle had been going on for the better part of 3 hours now and he had yet to do anything more than scratch her. Even with the power of his cursed seal, he had been unable to do anything. Since the moment he laid that one scratch on her, she had activated her Jinchuriki cloak, which acted as shield against most blunt damage. Not that he had been able to hit her again anyways, since her speed, strength and reflexes had tripled. Even though she could not use any jutsu without fear of overloading them, she was still kicking his ass. He thought about using his second stage cursed seal, but it was easy to realize that he would still be unlikely to kill Yugito. Especially given that she had the entire village with which she could hide in. On top of that he had his illness to worry about. The more he used his cursed seal the worse it got. He could not afford to let himself die here when Orochimaru may still need him. All thoughts from the two of them were cut off by the appearance of Shukaku in one of Konoha's parks. It was then that Kabuto appeared next to Kimamaro. Orochimaru-sama has ordered your withdrawal, Kimamaro-san. What? Asked Kimamaro in shock, but I can still fight. I can still help cough cough. Kimimaro dropped to a knee as he began coughing up blood. No, not again. Why is it acting up now? Kabuto shook his head. You used the cursed seal's power too much, and on top of that, you are fighting the Jinchuriki for the Nibi. In any case, the battle is, for the most part, over. We need to get you medical attention. I understand. Kimimaro stood up, only to cough up more blood. Kabuto placed a hand on Kimimaro's shoulder and the two sank into the ground. Yugito frowned as the pair disappeared. Sighing, she let her Jinchuriki cloak fall. Looking around, Yugito looked over towards Shukaku. Should we deal with that problem, kitten? No, if we were to battle Shukaku it was cause tremendous collateral damage. Yugito smiled as she saw a large puff of smoke. Besides, I have a feeling Naruto-kun has it well in hand. Oh, this is so not good, Naruto thought to himself as he looked over at Gaara. He looked at himself to see that he was covered nearly head to toe in sand. This totally sucks. How am I gonna get out of this? How the hell am I even supposed to fight something that big? I would need a— He stopped and blinked as an idea to beat Gaara came to him. Hey Q, can you give me a bit of Yuki? Within the seal, Kyuubi blinked in confusion. I don't see how my Yuki can. Oh. She said, paused as she realized what he wanted to do. Yeah, I can, here you go. Thanks. As Naruto felt a small surge of Kyuubi's Yuki, he brought his thumb to his mouth and swiped at some of the blood that had gotten there from when he was last thrown, and began to make a few hand signs. Gaara held out his right hand. Sabaku so. Kuchio's number jutsu. There was a massive burst of smoke and Naruto found himself standing atop of Gamabunta. Jumping down on his nose, Naruto turned to the massive summon. Hey there, Bunta. You want help me out with Big Bad over there? Naruto jerked a thumb towards Gaara. I'd take him out myself, but he seems to have grown too big for me. The Ikibi no Shukaku ha. Gamabunta blew out a large ring of smoke as he looked the giant sand tanuki. No can do, kid. Why would I want to go out of my way to fight a guy like that? Because if you don't, I'm gonna end up as nothing more than a bloody smear on the bottom of his foot. Naruto deadpanned. Besides, aren't summons supposed to help their summoner? Well, that's tough, kid. But I never accepted you as my summoner. We haven't even had a drink yet. Gamabunta heaved a massive shrug. Until we share a drink together I can't accept you as my summoner. You expect me to buy you sake? With amount of income I make? Asked Naruto. Are you forgetting that I'm nothing more than a genin? There is no way my sorry ass would be able to buy enough liquor to get you even slightly buzzed. I doubt I even make enough to get myself buzzed. As I said, tough, Gamabunta said in an uncaring manner. Fine, I really didn't want to do this but you leave me no choice. Naruto sighed before turning to Gaara and raising his hands to his mouth like a microphone. Hey Gaara. Gamabunta here says he can kick your motherfucking tanuki ass back to the time of the Raikudo Sanin. You dare mock me? I'll kill you. Gaara screamed as he went through several hand seals. Tanuki Niri no Jutsu, feigning sleep jutsu. The star-shaped pupils began to spin wildly on Shukaku as the tanuki shouted, I'm free. Hell yeah, it's time to party. It looked over at Gamabunta, and look. There's something to kill. Fuden. Renkuden. A giant bullet of air towards the giant toad. Summon. You know, I think I'm starting to hate Ugaki. Gamabunta grunted as he jumped away from the bullet. Hey, if you had just listened to me and helped, I wouldn't have had to do that. Naruto looked at Gaara and rubbed his chin in thought. Though, I'm not exactly sure how to beat an out-of-control Biju. Any ideas, Boss Toad? Shukaku inhaled a deep breath. Fuden. Renkuden. He launched another massive ball of air at Gamabunta, who decided to counter with his own attack. Sweeten. Tepudama. Ha. Why don't I give you a hand with that, Bunta? Naruto flew through his own hand seals. Fuden. Renkuden. He sucked in a breath before hitting his stomach, releasing a powerful cannonball of wind. Said ball hit the water bullet, increasing its speed and power nearly threefold as it smashed into the wind bullet sent by Shukaku. The wind bullet was destroyed and the water bullet continued on and collided with Shukaku himself, knocking the giant demon back and sending it crashing to the ground. A little ways away, both Kankuro and Tamari watched the fight in shock. When they had seen a fully transformed Shukaku appearing in the middle of one of Konoha's parks, they had assumed that it was going to start going on a rampage. However, they had been surprised when not only did Gaara not start smashing through objects, but that a giant toad would appear as well, and was now fighting off Shukaku. More surprising still was that they had spotted the familiar form of the blonde who had beaten Gaara in the first place on top of the giant toad summon. "Who the hell is this kid?" asked Kankuro. "I always thought his first battle was more luck than actually being able to beat Gaara. But now he's going head to head with him again and winning." "Hey, that wasn't too bad, Gaki," Gamabunta complimented as he watched the great demon fall back. "Of course it wasn't. It was awesome." Naruto grinned as he watched the giant sand demon try to get back up. "So how do we do this?" "We need to wake up the host. The boy on his head is acting as a medium for the Shukaku. A good smack should do it. I could pepper him with one of my attacks," Naruto offered, though that would most likely kill him. "Then it's a no-go. Killing the medium during a full possession may very well release the demon. Since it already has a form, it wouldn't need the boy. So we need to get in close then," Naruto said. "Alright, get me near that son of a bitch, and I'll wake his ass up." "These hands aren't very good at grabbing things, Gaki," Gamabunto held up his webbed hands. "How would you suggest I get a hold of him?" Naruto scoffed. "I don't need you to grab onto him, just get me close, I'll take care of the rest." "Hey Q-chan, think you can give me some juice?" "Of course Naruto-kun, just be careful, you've already used a tail once today and this will leave you drained, so no more strenuous activity after this." "Gotcha. Light me." Naruto felt Kyuubi's Yuki running through him again, and prepared himself for what was either going to be the most awesome thing he had ever done, or get his sorry ass killed. Orochimaru grit his teeth as he looked at Sarutobi, who was currently holding onto his shoulders and had his sword pierced into the old man's chest. Behind the old Hokage was Enma, who was on the ground with snakes entangling his form. He was holding onto the sword to keep it from going any further into Sarutobi's back. It was at this time that the snake Sannin was regretting his decision to let his old sensei use the jutsu he had told Orochimaru about, letting his curiosity for powerful jutsu override his common sense. It had only been after Sarutobi had gotten a hold of him that he realized just what the old man had done. Their battle had been intense, and they had clashed across their little arena for several hours, launching jutsu, battling with staff and sword. Neither had really been able to get the better of the other. Sarutobi was old, his age had made him far weaker than what he had been. Had this battle happened several years ago, the aging Hokage would have no doubt won this battle, but his age had made him unable to keep up with his former student physically. However, the old man was also cunning and had used his experience and crafty mind to make up for this weakness, thus making Orochimaru unable to really kill him. Perhaps had the two resurrected Hokages been able to battle Sarutobi, the fight would have been different. As it was now, Orochimaru had only gotten a lucky shot when Sarutobi had decided to put an end to the battles that had been going on. The old man had known it would come down to this. The Edo Tensei was a jutsu that only had a few counters that worked. And the only strategy he could use was to seal the Shodai and Nidaime Hokages using the Shiki Fujin, the same jutsu that had been used to help seal the Kyuubi inside of Naruto. The snake Sannin looked up to see the robed and purple-skinned Shinigami floating behind Sarutobi, its hand plunged deep into the old Hokage's back, going through the man like a specter and into Orochimaru himself. Orochimaru could feel his soul leaving him as the seconds ticked by. It was the singular most painful thing he had ever felt, like his very being was getting burned by fires that were even hotter than the black flames of Amaterasu. He looked back towards his old mentor and mentally cursed the man out with every word he knew. "I will not let your ambitions ruin this village anymore, Orochimaru." Sarutobi panted out as blood began to dribble down his mouth. "Both of us will now be going into the belly of the Shinigami, where we will face each other in eternal combat as our souls are consumed." "Curse you, old man, I will not be dying here." Orochimaru twitched his fingers, trying to make the sword in Orochimaru's back dig itself in deeper. It did not budge much, but he saw Sarutobi wince. He looked back down at the arm plunged into his chest, and saw that his soul had moved back in a little bit. However, much to his displeasure, it was pulled back out again. "My ambition will not die here, you old coot. This will accomplish nothing. I will still watch this village burn to the ground. Everything will be consumed and I will not be satisfied until I have destroyed everything you have ever held dear. This village will crumble before the day's end." The elderly Hokage stared at his student for several long seconds, before he smirked. "You should know better than to underestimate the shinobi of this village, Orochimaru. Each one of them is fighting to protect their home. giving their all and letting the will of fire burn within them. They will not be defeated so easily. Even should I die, so long as there are still Konoha shinobi left to fight, you will not win. Within one of the market districts in Konoha, dozens of Odo ninja ran through the now nearly deserted streets. The place had become eerily quiet, however all that was about to change. Several hundred shurikens suddenly poured at them from above, killing many Odo ninja with strikes in the head and injuring many more. Those who had survived looked up to see a female Anbu kunoichi with purple hair and a cat mask, along with a dozen other Anbu ninja. The one in the cat mask raised her sword. This is for Hayate-kun. Several dozen Suna and Odo shinobi were surrounding a man with long white robes and white eyes with veins popping out of them. He watched calmly while his enemies moved around him, not bothering to look behind since his eyes already knew they were there. Come on. It's just one man. An Odo ninja yelled out. This had the effect of all the ninja charging at him. However, in that single second the man began to spin as chakra poured out of all of his tenketsu points. Hakusho. Kaden. A large blue dome of chakra appeared around him, blasting the Odo and Suna ninja away with enough force that when the ninja smashed into rocks and trees, they ended up going right through them. When the attack ended, the only sign it had happened was the round trench that surrounded the man. Hiyashi looked to see all of the enemy ninja were dead and allowed a small, almost unnoticeable smirk to grace his features. The Hyuga are the strongest clan in Konoha, remember that. Baika number Jutsu. The loud voice sounded out as Akamichi Chusa, the father of Choji, grew several times larger than the buildings he was walking amongst. He held onto his halberd in one hand and made a swipe at his feet, almost similar to someone sweeping the dirt away with a broom. And like when that dirt was swept away, so were the many Suna and Odo ninja who were in the way. On a building just a few meters away, Nara Shikaku, Shikamaru's father, was facing off against several enemy shinobi. Man, this is so troublesome, know that this is the end for all of you. Kage Kyubi Shibari no Jutsu, Shadow Neck Binding Jutsu. The four ninja who had been captured by the man's previous jutsu, were now subject to getting their own necks snapped by their very own shadows. Shinranshin number Jutsu, Mind Derangement Jutsu. Came the shout of Ino's father, Yamanaka Inoichi. As soon as the name of the technique was called, one of the Suna shinobi he had been battling began to attack his comrades, lunging at them with a kunai. What the hell do you think you're doing? Screamed one of them as the kunai was plunged into his stomach. I don't know. I can't control my body. Soon the sounds of screams were all that was heard as the Suna ninja killed his own teammates before he himself was killed by Inoichi. With the attack finished, Shikaku appeared next to his longtime teammate, while Chusa stomped over to them, still standing several dozen feet above his comrades. It's just like old times, isn't it? Chusa guffawed with a booming laugh. Shikaku smirked. You said it, nothing like the reunion of the old Ino-Shika-Cho trio. Within one of the forests owned by the Aburame clan, Shibi and his son Shino watched impassively as their Kikai bugs swarmed over the Chunin who had tried to attack Konoha, only to retreat when Konoha began fighting back. They did not let the screams of their enemies bother them, whilst their bugs sucked the enemy ninja dry of chakra. When all of the ninja were dead, Shibi turned to his son. You have done well, son. Thank you, father, Shino said, his tone impassive, much like his dad's. Gatsuga. The cry came from above, and the three Odo ninja only had time to look up before a spinning drill slammed into each of them. The ninja cried in pain as they were ripped into small chunks of flesh. The spinning drills soon revealed themselves to be three dogs, which quickly jumped onto the roofs and joined two female kunoichi and a much larger and older canine. That was a nice attack, Hana, Inazuka Sum complimented her daughter, before turning her attention to her companion. Are you ready, Kuromaru? Of course, Sum-sama. The aging dog with the eye patch barked. Ibiki looked at the giant snakes in consternation, not at all happy with their inability to take them out. Right now many of the ninja with him were trying to stall the giant triple-headed snake, launching jutsu after jutsu at them. But this did not seem to have any visible effect on it, other than to make it mad and lash out against the Jonin attacking it. The snake was slowly but steadily making its way into the village, and with that giant tanuki already here, he did not want another large creature to get in and wreak havoc. To make matters worse, there were more Suna and Odo ninja pouring in through the gap that the three-headed snake was making. And with his ninja starting to fatigue, it would make them easy pickings for them when they caught them. Damn it. We're not equipped to handle this. However, just when all hope seemed lost, two things happened to lift morale. The first was the shocking appearance of Gamabunta over near the giant form of Shukaku. This had many people rallying at seeing the giant toad once again facing down a demon, much like it had when Minato Namikaze had summoned it during his battle with the Kyuubi. The second was the loud shout of, Kuchiyos, Yutai Kuzushi no Jutsu, summoning Jutsu, food cart destroyer. After the shouted jutsu, a large toad with two swords strapped to its back descended on top of the three-headed snake, smashing the thing flat and sending it back to the summoning realm. It's been a long time, hasn't it, Ibiki? A voice came from atop the toad. My, what have they been feeding you? You've gotten so big, compared to the little shrimp you used to be. Jiraiya-sama. Ibiki shouted in shock. If Jiraiya was here, then who had summoned Gamabunta? That's right, little chickadees. Open those small beady eyes and stand in awe. Jiraiya shouted as he began hopping left to right on one of his feet, the master at dealing with the most freaky and unusual things. It's the one, the only, Toad Sage of Mount Myoboku. The great, the gallant Jiraiya-sama. Had the sight of the large toad and the appearance of a man who was famed as being one of the most powerful ninja in Konoha not brought fear upon the Suna and Odo ninja present, they would have all face faulted at the utterly ridiculous entrance. Not that it stopped several of the Konoha ninja from doing so. However, those who already knew of the man's general eccentricity were not bothered by this and were greatly relieved, albeit also confused to see the Gama Sennin. One of those people were Ibiki himself, who shunshined onto the toad, bowing his head to the white-haired man. "Where's Sarutobi-sensei?" asked the white-haired man as he turned to Ibiki. At the stadium Jiraiya-sama, Ibiki stood back up. "If I may ask, since you are here, who is the one who summoned Gamabunta-sama?" Jiraiya looked at Ibiki and smirked. "Why, the newest summoner of the Toad contract, of course. Agaki, whom I hear has gotten rather famous for his many pranks in the village, and someone whose will of fire burns brightest. You are a fool, Orochimaru. A monster in human flesh. You hunger for jutsu, but in your quest for power and jutsu you have forgotten where true strength comes from." Sarutobi grinned as Orochimaru grit his teeth in both anger and a small amount of fear. It is only when a shinobi protects the things and people most precious to them that they find true strength. As Gamabunta closed the distance between them and Shukaku, the two giant creatures began firing off their respective jutsu. Naruto narrowed his eyes as he watched the overgrown tanuki get closer. 50, 40, 30 feet. That should do it. Naruto waited until the next attack created a nice distraction for him, and then he jumped up and over the explosion, using the added boost from Kyuubi's chakra to give him that extra reach. Naruto descended on Gaara face first, using his wind chakra to add speed to his descent before flipping around. True strength comes from protecting something precious to you. Orochimaru asked with a sneer. You've gone senile in your old age, Sarutobi-sensei. It's no wonder this village is burning as we speak. Sarutobi, despite the pain he was in, and the blood pouring out of his mouth, smirked. I think this is enough. We both know that I do not have the power to suck your entire soul out. However, do not think I will be just letting you walk away. For you, a man who is obsessed with learning all of the jutsu in the world, I feel this will be a most fitting punishment. I will strip you of your ability to use jutsu. Orochimaru's eyes widened as he stared in shock and fear as he watched the Shinigami pull his soul taut, stretching his soul out and pulling out both of his arms until they were visible. Then the spectral god took his knife and raised it above his head, a final crescendo to Orochimaru's punishment, right before he brought the knife down. No! Stop this! Orochimaru's shout went unanswered and he watched in horror, and then pain, as his ghostly arms were cut off and consumed by the Shinigami. Fuin, seal! Sarutobi shouted as he made a hand seal. A flash of brilliant white light shot from Sarutobi's chest as the Shinigami's hand retracted, taking the old Hokage's soul with it. When the light disappeared, Sarutobi was panting heavily as a seal similar to the one on Naruto's stomach appeared. Meanwhile, Orochimaru was forced to watch in horror as his arms went from their pale white to black, and a burning indescribable pain came over them. There, it is done, Sarutobi panted. Both of your arms have been sealed inside of me and your jutsu are now inaccessible to you. No longer will your hunger for jutsu be quenched. You damned old fool. Orochimaru cursed. all sense of composure and sanity lost in his world of anger and pain. Give me back my arms. You are pathetic, Orochimaru. Your arms are gone, forever in the grasp of the Shinigami. Sarutobi started to sway as he felt his life force leaving him. Farewell, my sad former student. It is unfortunate that we will not meet in the next life. Damn you, old man. Orochimaru cursed and swore, using every vulgarity he could think of. However, Sarutobi could no longer hear any of it. He looked at his former student with a content smile, closing his eyes before life left him. Rise and shine, you son of a bitch. Naruto smashed right into Gaara's shoulders. The force of the blow sent them both straight through Shukaku's body, forcing it to collapse on itself since it no longer had a medium to hold it. The pair crashed straight into the ground as sand fell down all around them. Holy shit, Gamabunta mumbled, almost frothing his pipe as he watched the obviously insane blonde stomp a mud hole straight through Shukaku. Jiraiya's definitely picked an interesting one this time. I'm actually pretty interested to see how this will end. Unfortunately, I'm nearly out of chakra, but I look forward to seeing more of what this Uzumaki kid can do. With that, the giant toad disappeared in a puff of smoke. Naruto grunted as he dragged himself and Gaara out of the now giant sand pit, spitting up the sand that had managed to get in his mouth. Kami, I'm beginning to fucking hate sand. Naruto spit up more sand as he dropped Gaara and watched the other genin back away. No. Stay away. You will not end my existence. Gaara shouted as he tried his best to back away from the blonde genin. Oh, shut the fuck up, you damn pussy, Naruto shouted in annoyance. You're a shinobi, aren't you? You deal with death every fucking day. You son, you need to grow a pair if you're afraid of a little thing like death. Naruto began rolling his shoulders, listening to them crack. Kami, I'm so fucking tired. If I don't make Chunin from this, I'm just gonna say screw it. I need a vacation. Gaara looked at the blonde who had basically just trounced him, and was now acting as if nothing out of the ordinary had happened. How? How are you so strong? I always fight only for myself, yet you beat me. What makes you so strong? Naruto rolled his eyes. That's easy. I'm strong because I don't fight for myself. I only fight to protect my precious people, my friends and those I've begun to consider family. Gaara looked confused, but I don't understand. Why would you fight for anyone other than yourself? Naruto sighed, because they saved me from myself. You and I are a lot alike, you know that. Hated for something we had no control over, for something that was done to us by others. I remember the glares, the hatred, and the isolation I suffered because of my burden. However, unlike you, I worked hard and eventually gained friends, people who accepted me, who saved me. Naruto glared at Gaara, and if you ever try to hurt my precious people or my village again, not even Kami will protect you from my wrath. Naruto shifted his attention when Gaara's two siblings jumped down from the clearing and got into fighting stances. The blonde just shook his head. You really don't want to be doing that. I'm tired, I'm pissed, I've got sand in places I really don't want to think about, and I just beat the piss out of the guy who scares the piss out of you too. Mess with me, and I'll give both of you a beating that your ancestors will feel. The two Suna siblings glared at the blonde who had dismissed them so easily. However, the blonde noticed this and merely gave the two a grin. Now then, we're all going to go back to Konoha proper, and I'm gonna take you two into custody. And by me, I mean we, and by we, I actually mean her. Naruto pointed behind the pair, who could do nothing as they felt the butt end of a kunai hit the back of their necks, knocking them unconscious. Yo Yugi-chan. Naruto grinned as he made 3 cage bunchins to carry the sand siblings. Come to congratulate me on my awesome fight. Yugito shook her head and smiled. That had to be the craziest and most reckless attack I have ever seen in my life. At least it will give your grandkids something to talk about for years to come. I have a feeling this battle is gonna be something they put down in the history books. The blonde Konoha ninja tried to move only to fall flat on his face. What the hell? Looks like those 3 cage bunchin you made used up nearly all of your Yuki, Kyuubi informed him. You've only got enough to keep you conscious. God damn it, that sucks. Naruto complained. I just got finished kicking ass and this totally killed my awesome factor. Perhaps you should learn to converse your Yuki more, Kyuubi suggested as she snickered at her cantainer's plight. Sometimes it was the little things that could make her smile. Shut up, Naruto grumbled before he felt himself being lifted off the ground. Looking to his left he saw Yugito with his arm over her shoulder, and her arm wrapped around his waist. He gave his fellow Jinchuriki a smile, "Thanks Yugi-chan." Yugito looked at Naruto and smiled back, "You're welcome." She paused before giving him a grin, "Though I hope you don't expect me to carry you around after every battle you have." Naruto smirked, "Are you saying you don't like being this close to me, Yugi-chan? You seemed to be pretty content feeling me up the last time we were doing this." When he saw her blush, Naruto added a point for himself. Deciding to take it a step further, he added, "Not to mention you pinched my ass, I still have to get you back for that, you know." Having gotten herself under control, Yugito looked at him with a smirk of her own, "Oh well then, be my guest." She bumped her hip into his, "It's right here waiting for you after all." She gave him a grin, "Of course, since you can't move that's kind of a moot point, isn't it?" Naruto gave her a mock glare, "Once I recover I'm seriously going to make you regret making fun of me, Yugi-chan." "Ah, don't be like that, Naruto-kun," the blonde woman purred, "you know I love you." "You sure don't act like it with how mean you're being," Naruto sniffed, "meanie." The two continued their game of words as Yugito carried Naruto back into Konoha. Little did the blonde shinobi know that tragedy was waiting for him after the battle. Several days later, two figures stood atop a small hill overlooking Konoha. Both of them were wearing black cloaks with red clouds and straw hats on their heads. You know, for having come out of a war, they seem to be doing pretty good. The much taller figure said, "Are you feeling nostalgic being back in your home village?" The shorter figure looked up, revealing a pair of red eyes with 3 tomo in each. "No. Thank you for watching. Please make sure to like and subscribe and have a great day."